In the spirit of respect, authenticity, and reconciliation, the town of Slave Lake honors and acknowledges that we are situated on the traditional lands of Sawridge First Nation within Treaty 8 territory, home to Indigenous, Métis, and Inuit peoples who have occupied these lands since time immemorial. Oh, Councillor Adams, but Councillor Ferguson had it. Go ahead, Councillor Adams.
Make a motion to adopt the agenda as presented. That was loud.
Actually, I do have an amendment to the motion. I would like to add to the agenda under new business reports 5C, discussing the date of the June 18th council meeting and changing that date. So there is a motion on the floor for the amended agenda. Any further discussion? Call to question those in favor. And that is carried. So we've added 5C. Councillor Hughes.
I move to accept the minutes of the regular meeting of council from May 21st, 2024 as presented in our package.
Motion on the floor. Any further discussion? Call to question those in favor. And that is carried. Okay, first up, we have our delegation of Apex Security. If you guys want to come up to the mic here and you can state your name and business address, and then the floor is yours. Pardon? Yep, you can set up everything you need to right there. Take your time.
Sorry.
No, take your time. You're good.
All right, thank you for having us here. We're for the Apex Security. My name is Alan Guckert. I'd like to thank the council members and Jeff for inviting us. Originally, I met with Jeff. So my name is Alan Guckert. I'm the business development and leadership manager with Apex Security. A little background on myself. I got 35 years in corrections. With 17 and a half of that is a management role, and that encompasses 4 different correctional centers within the province here. So over those 35 years, senior manager and director of Peace River Correctional Center for the last 6 years. And just want to bring some of the experiences with the door upgrades, cameras and stuff like that throughout the correctional experience that I have, along with the management of staffing and security wise. So bring that to Apex and bring that forward. We're proud to be, and I'm excited to present the PSU Public Security Unit with Apex and present that to you folks today. We're excited to bring that, and we're really enthusiastic about that. It can maybe make some changes to public safety and security within Slave Lake. So we did do a PowerPoint presentation, and with me is Remy Nault.
I'm Remy Nault. I've been with Apex Security for going on 12 years now. I've done pretty much everything from patrol guard all the way to now I'm the director of the public security unit for the company. And so, yeah, I'm really excited. I think it's a great opportunity when this program first came to Grand Prairie to actually make a difference in my community with some of the issues that I've been seeing for a long time. So we're excited to show you guys what we have.
Okay. We'll just click through the next screen there. So public security unit is a unit within Apex that we brought to Grand Prairie. It's bridging the gap between enforcement, social programs and the public and supporting and responding to the community. So in that, we're kind of a unique position that we're bringing security, working on the enforcement side, but we're also working out with those outreach programs, mental health organizations and different organizations supporting some of the social disorder within the community. So we're kind of working with peace officers, working with bylaw, working with the RCMP in that capacity. And we like to emphasize that we're bridging a gap, trying to bring that all together along with communities and businesses and providing the security and safety within that. Next slide, please. So the PSU currently consists of 8 trained guards within working in the public security officers, sworn in as bylaw enforcement officers, and officers at the operating teams of 2 and work 24 hours a day, 365 days a year currently. Public unit is designed to deal with community concerns at the ground level through a proactive approach, addressing incident social disorder and public nuisance. And we'll get a little bit more involved in that to what we do and how we do that going forward. On the picture, there is the team that's in Grand Prairie that was encompassing our public security unit there. So next slide, please. When I came here a little while ago, I got some friends, I got some, some associates here, business. There is a lot of concern right now in Slave Lake, and it's not only in Slave Lake. I want to reassure you guys, it's a lot of the communities in Alberta and across Canada in regards to security wise, encampments, homelessness, disorder, trespassing, break and enter, stuff like that. That's really climaxing. And we just wanted to emphasize that on here, that it's not decreasing, as everybody knows. It's increasing, and things have changed since 20 years ago when you could walk downtown and feel safe, or walk along some pathways, ride your bike and that. So we just wanted to look at the overburden of enforcement and emergency services. Just because of the manpower and the situations and call data that's coming in, we're finding that the call for the RCMP or any enforcement type has really gone skyrocketing. And we find that the lower end, a lot lower priority calls are the ones that we're dealing a lot of time with, and a lot of taking up a lot of those resources. So what we offer as the public security unit is looking after a lot of them lower end calls for their businesses, the community, and taking those calls and dealing with them at a faster, more rapid response time, more efficiently, allowing the enforcement, the police officers, RCMP, to go about and spend more time on their other higher priority calls, and then allow those response times to maybe increase. So looking at the graph, we know what's going up. There's prolonged response times right now, concerns residents and businesses, as we know, and just unsafe communities in general. So we just wanted to have a look at that and say that we know, we understand, and that's what we work towards, putting this public security unit into force. It's been in Grand Prairie for about 1 year and 9 months in there, and the stats that we'll show you guys here in the future will give a breakdown over 1 year of what the public security unit did and how they worked with the communities and the businesses. Next slide, please. So what we deal with the PSU is trespassing, loitering, social disorder, suspected drug use, intoxicated persons, unlawful encampments, public safety concerns, escalate and distribute agent program. And I'll talk a little bit about what the agent program and what that consists of going forward here. Public facilities presence, and we support city, town, RCMP services and law enforcement agencies along with outreach resources and programs that are going on. So we work with those individuals. We kind of direct them towards there or work side by side as we did in Grand Prairie with what we call the MOP program there, the Mobile Outreach Program, and directly with homeless shelters, outreach programs, and mental health and stuff like that. So a lot of those things that we're dealing with are on the lower end scale of the enforcement part. So we take those calls and we respond rapidly with them. We deal with those and we take those away from the RCMP or the peace officers. Next slide, please. We'll just jump into the overview of the PSU.
So the training, so each PSU member is not a new security guard. We staff our team with experienced security guards. They operate in teams of 2. So one will be a lead and one will be a second on that team. The lead will have the more experience. So we do a lot of training for what we do on the PSU. We kind of set a high bar for what we expect our guards to do. And so we train a lot more than just a basic security guard. So you would take your basic security course, which is a 40-hour course. But then we also do de-escalation training. We do control tactics and survival skills, threat pattern recognition, also first aid, your Alberta basic security course. We do naloxone training. In the last year, 9 months, we administered 34 different times Narcan on somebody who we found overdosing. We do FOIP and data sensitive training, and then also a lot of in-field training. And then also like Monday nights, we do use of force training in a gym together. We'll get a group of our guards together and we'll run scenarios, and then and then continuous field training and development. So most of the leads working have 5+ years experience doing this job, and they're able to mentor the number 2s coming up. And then as the program grows, we like to develop those people and then bring in more people. So next slide, please. This one. Okay. So yeah, as Alan was saying, the success of the program in Grand Prairie, I think, is because for the first time we started collaborating with, so often you have RCMP doing their thing and, maybe mobile outreach doing their thing and peace officers, and nobody's really getting together. And so what Mike Lefevre had thought of doing is actually not only having meetings together. So every day we would start our day at 6 o'clock in the morning, briefing with peace officers in their bullpen. So we would have a brief with them. And on the first day of the 4 on 4 off schedule, we would then at 7 o'clock go into the RCMP bullpen and brief peace officers, mobile outreach, PSU, and the RCMP together. So we're actually all sitting in the same room, able to talk about some of the issues. Are we looking for this guy? Or mobile outreach says, oh, we've got this problem. And so we've been able to actually really work together, and I thought that was very successful. So we work alongside the RCMP, social organizations such as your Friendship Center, outreach programs, private businesses, parks and town maintenance. So anytime we would find an encampment, you'll see some pictures later on. Some of them are such huge messes, and we call out to parks will come in if the encampment was too big, and I know encampments might be different here than they are in Grand Prairie, but we would go in with parks to make sure that they have a safe area to be able to do their jobs, to clean up that mess and take it out. And then town enforcement services, EMS, fire, whether it's overdoses that they're attending to, or EMS, we've actually ridden in the back of the ambulance with them to the hospital when they've had patients that were maybe getting a little bit violent after being brought back to life with Narcan. And then AHS, lots of dropping people off at the hospital that were, when mobile outreach wasn't working, or if they're out of service or too busy, we would then bring people to the hospital for them. This one. Next slide. Okay, so the authority. So the authority that gives us the power to work in Grand Prairie is we're sworn in by law officers. So that gives us authority to operate in all public spaces, in all the parks. And so we use 494 of the criminal code to enforce criminal stuff. We use the Petty Trespass Act, which is pretty handy, trespass to premises, and then different city and town bylaws. Next slide. So that's gonna be one that we used a lot in Grand Prairie was the utilities bylaw. So because people would go into dumpsters, make big messes, and to be able to get them to not access these dumpsters, we would use those bylaws to try to curb that behavior. And then your use of public lands, parkland bylaws, no tent structures or things like that are allowed to be set up. And you can see, yeah, some of the encampments we would find routinely. I think in the year and 9 months, we did 2008 encampments total so far. Next slide. And I'll let Alan go into some of our statistics.
So this is just a snapshot of over a year of what we've done in Grand Prairie. And we've broken it down in the bottom there for a month. So over just a 30-day period, 2.7 thefts that our PSU Public Security Unit would deal with, 332 trespasses a month, 1.6 overdoses, 96 encampments, and overall 532 occurrences that we would deal with. So the bottom number on there is that we had over 6,400 calls or occurrences that we were patrolling and looking after, or calls would come into the RCMP and be forwarded to the PSU or into peace officers and forwarded to the PSU. And we worked hand in hand with the radios with them. So their frequency for the peace officers was the same for the PSU. And then if we needed to have another level of a law enforcement, the RCMP, that we would engage that through our dispatch unit, through Grand Prairie, our own Apex dispatch unit. I'll show you that here in a bit. 24-hour day operation, 2 staff on there, plus a supervisor. So the calls would go in there after 11 o'clock and those calls would be forwarded. But the big thing is that out of 6,400 occurrences that we dealt with, over 85% were dealt with just through the public security unit without involving other law enforcement or forms of enforcement agencies. So that in itself allows them to go beyond and answer those other higher priority calls. So taking away some of those calls, plus not directing or tying up the lines with them, those calls will be forwarded to dispatch to us and a public security unit for through businesses and that if there's loitering or trespassing or somebody intoxicated or just somebody generally that they think is a little suspicious. Those are the kind of calls that the public security unit could go to, along with residents that would have the number. They had the pamphlets handed out. And I don't know if I handed those out to you guys from Grand Prairie. They had little pamphlets with public security on there with phone numbers and that, but the residents could phone that number also through the public security unit and we would respond to them. So out of 6,400 calls, 85% were handled by us. The next slide, please. So the agent program was originally in Alberta, was developed in Edmonton City Police. And I don't know if you guys are familiar with the agent program, but the agent program is businesses could sign up for that and have law enforcement agencies act on their behalf to work on to be on their property after hours, during hours, and represent either the owner or the management team on those premises at the time and act on their behalf. So what Grand Prairie did is adopted that, put that agent program in, so the businesses could sign up for that program, have that phone number available to them that we would respond to, and no cost to them, but the agent program is there. And what they would do is put a sticker on their door. If we could go to the next screen, please. So the agent program would put a sticker on their door. They would sign up. They would sign off that the authority was given to us. Our guys would know after hours if they responded, nobody's there and the business is closed. If they have a agent sticker on there, they could still act on their behalf for that property. And the social disorder that's going on, take care of that. So a lot of the businesses in the downtown area, we started off, I think, Remy, you said we started 150.
Yeah, something like that.
They're up to 350 that's are on that My Agent program now.
Yeah.
So So those businesses really adapted that, and there was some that really enjoyed having that in regards to some of the larger franchise and that, where you get your coffee, I won't say the name. But for the loitering and the intoxicated people showing up there, the PSU was really, really valuable to those customers and making a difference in the downtown core, making the businesses a little more accessible to people and making it thrive a little bit more too. So the agent program, they would sign up, put the sticker on the door, and we would recognize that as when we showed up to those businesses that we could act on their behalf.
That comes in really handy after hours, especially, we're working 24 hours a day. People are wanting to go set up, inside bank ATMs in the wintertime. And, that gives us the authority to just go and take care of the problem before it gets entrenched or, and you show up in the morning and there's a whole camp set up in front of your business. If I had one just last week, there's a pretty big mess in front of Town Center Mall where they have, Services Canada is in that building. And yeah, so we were able to get that cleared out before the public started coming in, at 8 o'clock.
So I think it would be really beneficial to Slave Lake to maybe adopt that or bring that into the program and have those businesses not only. It gives the option of, sometimes there's somebody there that's loitering or intoxicated. They don't know whether they should phone the RCMP and burden them with that call or try and deal with it themselves, or just hopefully time passes and they move on. This is that lower end option where they could phone, we would respond to that, and it doesn't take away from any of the other resources already in place.
Think things of low criminality typically is what they are, but they do grow into bigger things. RCMP and other law enforcement agencies look at those low criminality things is a very low level thing. So if they have other calls that they're dealing with, that call of a suspicious person or somebody just hanging out is going to get ignored. And so, but for us, we would go and actually engage with them because we're not typically dealing with thefts or assaults or any of those higher level calls. So that gives us the time and the ability to just kind of go into these low criminality things that are high visibility, right? They're highly visible to the public, but they're considered low criminal, like to the police. So how do you go in between that where the public wants them to respond to every call and they're like, we can't respond to every call. So that, I think that's where we fit in really nice. Next slide, please.
Just run through kind of the daily operations of PSU, give you guys a little bit of a feel of what we do out there. So next slide, please. First is the visual presence, that we make a presence in regards to the community and businesses out there. We're patrolling out there. We not only do vehicle patrols, we would do foot patrols with the option of bike patrols in the summer, and that just to get out into those general areas, parks, walkways, common areas that people would visit normally in the summer that maybe they're not visiting because of the social disorder that's going on. So just a visual presence and giving people a peace of mind that there is some security out there and there is an option for them, and that we're not only looking at, within the community here, we're not responding out to larger areas, and that we're actually right into Slave Lake. Next slide, please. Some of the encampments and all these pictures that we're showing you guys here is the actual, when our guys go in, and Remy will testify, our guys go in and deal with the situation. It's documented. There's usually pictures taken and there's reports done on every occurrence that we have. So that's how we can do the stats almost precisely to what we're doing. And along with the pictures is just some continuity and some background in regards to it, and allowing us to follow up if we need to, and making sure that everybody's safe. So the encampments and check-in removals, collaboration with park outreach and programs, as Remy said, we work collaboratively with them. We're here to support, not take over. We're here to support some of those agents or those enforcement agencies that are out there, RCMP, and the collaboration that we have and the working field that we were in really works well with the RCMP. They get to know us. They understand when we have those calls that the situation is usually under control at the time, and we're already at the level of we've arrested them, placed them in restraints, and we're waiting for the RCMP to come and further arrest them and proceed with that. So our guys carry batons and handcuffs and are trained in all that, as we said. So if there is something like that, they are trained to restrain, put the restraints on the individual and then hold them until such time in regards to trespassing, that within the acts that we're following and bylaws. So the encampments are we're dealing with. The next slide, please. Street engagement is along with that wellness checks. Which was winter time and nobody's out there and there's things going on. We do a lot of the wellness checks out there, not only maintaining the security and safety of that, but we're actually looking after some of these individuals in regards to their well-being. Harassment calls, trespass enforcement, social disorder, and connecting them with programs and having those outreach or those resources that are working with us and we're working with them available and directing these individuals to them.
And next slide, please. So these are just a few of the toys that we've removed from the streets of Grand Prairie over the course of the year in 9 months. Just a small sampling. And this is why we operate in teams of 2s when we go looking for encampments. That mace, or I believe it's a Morning Star, is fairly large, and you know, so we always have 2 people, and we call for backup at any time if we think that there's going to need you know, a higher level of authority.
And we like to, with the PSU and dealing with stuff like that, we really like to encourage the safety aspect of it, the training, the protective gear that our individuals wear. Our guys wear body cams to record every incident also. So if they're dealing with incidences, those are all recorded. The safety aspects there, the training. And when we go in and deal with these situations, rather than having the public or somebody deal with them, that's what the public or the public's security unit's about, is protecting the citizens within the community. Our dispatch and video monitoring center, Remy, I'll let you talk about that.
Yeah, so we have we've got a 24-hour dispatch center. We do live video monitoring for many different locations. You know, as Alan had mentioned earlier, so my setup, and I apologize, I don't have my gear with me today. I actually left that at home and didn't realize till I just about got here. So, but we carry typically 2 radios. One radio is a digital, cellular digital radio that goes directly to our dispatch center. So we have, and our second radio goes directly to peace officers and enforcement services, mobile outreach. So we always have 2 sets of abilities to radio communicate than your cell phones and stuff. So we have a dispatcher on 24 hours a day. At night, during the day, there's 1. During the nighttime, there's 2 plus a supervisor. And yeah, so they're basically our lifeline. For the first year and a little bit, we were also fielding the enforcement service calls that would come in after hours. So the system that they have in Grand Prairie is they have a dispatcher that works Monday to Friday, you're 8 a.m. till 4:30 p.m. After 4:30, the peace officers, it forwards the phone to a cell phone. And then at midnight, when they go home, that phone number would then forward directly to our dispatch center. And so if you called, you could call by law or peace officers 24 hours a day and get somebody. And so they would field their calls. So very effective. In fact, the community got very used to calling 24 hours a day at Circle K's, especially Tim Hortons, things like that, where they have a higher amount of people frequenting those locations. So yeah, we have, and we're fully set up. We do, like I said, video monitoring. Yeah, very, very good. Okay, so our incident recording. Oh, next slide, please. Yeah, incident recording. So we record everything. So in that picture, you can see that's my partner at the time doing a log for, we use dispatch software that the enforcement services uses, and their reporting software as well. So we're creating files with their software. When we have a trespass call or an encampment call, we're able to see it dispatched during the day on the computer. So as the call comes up, we're able to just see it and then grab it and go to that call instead of having to wait for somebody else to see it and then radio. And sometimes that not having that ability can lead to like delayed response times. And I'd like to kind of set a 5 to 10 minute time to respond to a trespass call if I can. And I found that in the past, before we had access to that, some of the times it would be on the board for 30-40 minutes before we would even get radio to go to the call. So very handy to have that dispatching software. And then on top of that, we create a daily report every day. So we will start our day with, you know, at the time it was 5:30. And then with the briefings, and along the whole way of the day, you can kind of see how our day is going. We have some days where we'd have 34 incidents, and you could read about all of them in there. And then there's a file number. You could then go into report exec and pull up that file that's a little bit more in depth. And that's the file that the enforcement services would use. So we like to report everything that allows us to track our statistics a little bit better. And I think if that tracking your stats is the only way to really see if you're being successful in what you're doing. And so, yeah, we would do the same thing at any other PSU that we do. We've kind of already made it so that we have our reporting. Yeah, that's next slide, please.
Some of the testimonials that we got were from Grand Prairie Administrative Report, and they're just, commenting on the, I'll put my glasses on, excuse me. Just the success of the PSU's operation may be key to the future of policing and enforcement was one of the comments. The professionalism and training of this team is welcomed by the Downtown Association to assist with issues and social disorder on a daily basis. And applying the correct level of response to issues being addressed is essential to the modernization of our service model. This initiative aligns with council's strategic direction regarding community service and safety. So those are some of the comments that were made in regards to the PSU, which is very important to us. And we strive to maintain safety in the community and work with the community and the businesses in that. So next slide, please. What we did is just threw a couple of the pictures in here in regards to what the PSU kind of a typical day might look like for them is picking up individuals and even sometimes transporting them to where they need to go. If there is no outreach or programs available, making sure they're in from the cold, making sure maybe they have a meal, something like that. We're not only on the enforcement side, but we're looking after some of these individuals too and directing them the right way. Yeah, it's just, there's one in there with the training that we do and the one with the restraint of the individual there. So. Next slide, please, is just some of the more of the dealing with some of the issues within some of the businesses that we dealt with and along the roadside and what actually can happen to some of the extent of those encampments and what the community sees and what we were dealing with and cleaning up. And the last slide that we have is insurance safety community. Community safety is our top priority. In this slide, we I think they cleaned up 48 needles in one site. So not only do we look after dealing with calls and dealing with issues, but we also do needle pickup to ensure the safety of the public and that too. So some of the calls that you guys would receive is in regards to some of the public finding needles and stuff on the ground, which I'm sure everybody's seen or heard of somebody or small kid finding that. Our guys would come and respond to that, put it in a safety container and just dispose of that. So the PSU is essentially there for the community and businesses, and we really want to bring that forward. We want to emphasize that the safety and the security that we're bringing into the community is huge. We think that there is that gap there where their enforcement may be there wanting to do that, but they don't have the time, the resources, or the manpower to look after some of those situations. And then just giving that a little bit of authority to our guys in regards to the bylaws and encroaching maybe on the peace officer status is in regards to allowing us to maybe handle some of those situations, take a lot of those burden calls, which we talked to Peace River RCMP. They went up 170% in their calls in the last couple of years. And a lot of those calls don't get fielded because of the manpower and restraints. And I'm sure that's very equal here too in Slave Lake. So those calls will be filtered to us. We would look after it. We would do that community approach. We would have that visual presence. We would have that security there, and also in dealing with these individuals on a level basis too. So we really want to bring that forward. We want to guys kind of showcase what it is and how we deal with it, and that it works, and that it makes a big difference, and it makes a business the community and the business part of it, allowing people to come back to the town centers or the parks and enjoy some of those things. And we really, that presence is there 24 hours a day, showing them that, you know, that it's still safe to be out there, and when we made a big difference. So that's our presentation so far.
Okay.
I emailed Jeff there in regards to all the packages and that, and some of the stuff that we talked about in regards to the reports are in there, our reference letter, some of the references we got.
Yeah, we have that, so council and public have that as part of the package with the reference letters.
Okay.
You see the one from the Friendship Center here as well. We
Yeah.
have the in our business arising from delegations, and we have security proposals
Okay.
Perfect.
for cost wise. But I will open up the floor to council for some
Sure,
questions for the
absolutely,
delegation,
yep.
if that works for you. If not, I will go. Council, okay. Okay, so I have a couple questions. Other than Grand Prairie, are you using the PSU in any other communities right now?
We are in talks with Peace River right now,
This river, okay.
and we were heading down to Red Deer.
Mhm.
We have had talks with the city manager out of Edmonton.
Mhm.
So, and we're still branching out. We've done a Alberta run where we dropped off these pamphlets to different council members in all the cities across the province here in about 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
We did a week run across the province, and we've approached those communities to showcase what we're doing with our public security unit. And the package that we presented to you through the email is the same package that we have here. I do have some hard copies available, but we did approach those cities in that. So there is some further involvement with some of the other communities right now.
Also, so you'd mentioned earlier that the ability to work alongside other agencies, including the RCMP.
Yes.
So does your staff get security clearance so that they're able to, you know, the RCMP is able to share information with them and able to go into the attachments, talk to RCMP members? Like, just wondering if there's any security clearance there.
Well, yeah, so for this program, we had not gone through the advanced security clearance yet, so they were limited on what they could share with, but we still did brief in the bullpen with them, and we did have quite a bit of information sharing going on. However, yeah, and we didn't need that clearance for the peace officer, but that would be definitely something I'd like to look into for future programs.
And then one more before, well, let's Councillor Adams go. So you spoke about connecting a bunch of times about connecting with programs, more speaking to the mental health and the social disorder end. I'm wondering if you can tell me what examples of some of those programs that you would connect people to.
Well, a lot of the times, we relied heavily on mobile outreach, was the number one, which their whole purpose is to connect people directly with outreach workers that would then either make appointments to see them or go see them in the field. So so we would say find an encampment, we would find maybe 2 or 3 people there. Instead of just having them get their stuff and move along and clean it up, they always get offered, do you need mobile outreach? That's the number one question, even though they're not necessarily our program. You always ask for mobile outreach. And then if they say yes, then we would radio mobile outreach. They would come in and then connect them with outreach workers, IDs, things like that. They do an ID clinic at Aberdeen Center on Wednesdays and Thursdays, I believe. And then the one thing I kind of enjoyed was that even with a lot of these social programs, there's a lot of people that fall through the cracks that are too violent to be dealt with outreach workers because they're not safe. They get banned from almost all shelters, things like that. And so there's been quite a few times where, you know, being 2 security professionals with gear and training, I'll basically, and what's nice is we're very flexible with how we can operate. So we would then, you know, find some of these folks, you know, freezing outside, banned from shelters, banned from the mobile outreach van, and it actually would load them up in our van and then take them to, you know, the first place we went was to her pharmacy. I can't tell you who it was, but she had prescriptions she needed to get filled. And So we took her to her pharmacy, went in with her, got her prescriptions, and then took her to the Salvation Army to get food, which she was banned from as well. So went inside, got her food hampers for her, and then we're able to bring her to the shelters, which she was banned from, but due to the cold, the temperature, they were allowing her to stay inside the front entrance to stay warm. So, but yeah, other than that, we're not necessarily directly connecting them with a social worker, but we're facilitating that, even though, because we're out looking for these encampments, finding people in places where most people aren't even looking. And so we're able to connect them through mobile outreach mostly.
And I think with the mobile outreach, they kind of handled a lot of that part of it, but we still directed them and said, this is available through your mental health and offer some assistance that way and guide them that way. But we're willing to work. We've talked with in Peace River with the mental health agencies there and AHS in regards to what we can do if we bring in that program, where we can go to and who we can contact. So we're in that process. So we'd be more than willing and available to have those conversations and work with those organizations. But specifically in Grand Prairie, those were just different organizations looking after it. There was so many that it wasn't a direct line for us, but we've enhanced that and we're working on that in our proposals. So.
Counselor Adams.
My question, just trying to understand. So at what point you were commenting on, you mainly handle low criminality
Yes.
Instances. At what point do you get in there and back off? I guess for lack of a better term.
That's a good question. So, I think that's where a lot of the experience nature of the people that we work with, the leads have a lot of experience. So, we're dealing with the trespass call. Someone's trespassing on a property. Let's just say you come in, you ask them to leave. Sometimes depending on the state they're in, it might take a little while. But then if they don't leave, you can arrest them, and then you have to then radio up because you can arrest them, put them in handcuffs, but then you have to turn them over to a higher authority. And then for other crimes, if you saw our theft case was very low, like 2.7, and that's, I think, just a lucky, right place, right time in a certain stores. So we're not really dealing with any of that stuff. As soon as we see something that would be, an indictable crime or something more serious, we would immediately radio a peace officer, or if it was after hours, we would call a radio or a dispatcher to have them call the 911 dispatcher to get the RCMP involved. So we typically will look at a rule of thumb is anything kind of low on it. I mean, we have made arrests for everything up to thefts and assaults, but anything past that, we always go to a higher authority as soon as it's at a certain level where you're dealing with assaults or more indictable crimes. I would say it's when we would kick it up to an RCMP member.
And with all those weapons and stuff that we recovered in that, we've never had an incident where a staff member was injured to a certain degree.
Great.
And we've never had an incident where there was a complaint or a lawsuit put towards the town or the city or the Apex in regards to how we dealt with that. So, but in answer to your question, and knowing when to back off, some of that training is incorporated in there, and our guys are trained that if it is a situation where can be different consequences coming out of to back off, call dispatch and radio up for a little further. But like we said, 85% of those calls that we dealt with ourselves, and the other 15% were either getting the resources in there to assist and finish off the arrest or to assist us. But there's many times in Grand Prairie where the RCMP asked our public security unit to assist them on different situations and back them up. So it's kind of a give and take, and our guys are trained to recognize that threat, or if there's a safety issue in that, to back off. So.
Okay, you kind of touched on my next question was liability.
Yes.
Where does that land? How does that work if your individual uses excessive force and like you see in the media?
Yeah.
Or if it comes the other way around and one of you get injured?
We've had some of our guys get assaulted while they were on the job. Thank goodness nothing too serious. Skateboard to the head was one of them specifically. And so that's why it's important to, you know, we use body cameras, we're able to capture that stuff. And, you know, when it comes to liability on the other side, excessive force, that's why our goal is to get verbal compliance, you know, as much as possible. And then the training we do teaches you a lot on how to use force appropriately. And, you know, like, if we're making an arrest, the goal is to just apprehend that person. It's to put them into handcuffs and wait for the RCMP. We're not out there fighting, you know, like slugging it out. You know, we do a lot of grappling training for our use of force. It's not, you know, there are some strikes obviously with a baton, but that's, you know, we have a use of force model, the same model that the RCMP use, the same model that the peace officers use, and we follow that very closely. And that's what the Monday night trainings that we do is to because the more you practice, the more you're thinking about it, the easier you're going to fall back on your training. So it's important because excessive force is definitely something that you have to be mindful of. And that's why our goal is to get verbal compliance most of the time. You know?
And we recognize too that being sworn in as bylaw officers and working for the city or the towns, that we represent those.
I understand the intent. I just,
Yeah.
I guess what I'm getting at is what's to stop an individual? Where's the risk for the town?
Yeah.
How is that covered on your end so that we're protected as
That
well?
would be covered under our insurance or
Which is
uh
value wise, is there something there or does
Yeah,
that
there's-
make sense?
Yeah, I'd have to go back and have a look in regards to
Yeah.
the value of our insurance cover. I think it's, don't quote me on this, to 3 million or something like that in regards to liability and stuff like that. But there is a contract there with the city and between our agency in regards to liabilities and where it falls. And if it's in excessive in that, it would fall back onto through the city, but Apex would jump in there and take some of that liability and have a look at that. But the legality of it, I would have to dive in a little bit deeper for you. And I recognize the question. Yeah. So we don't have, we work with the city in that, and I don't have specifically that answer here, but I will get it for you.
Thanks.
Any further questions from council? Okay, thank you, gentlemen.
All
Appreciate
right,
that.
thank you so much for your time.
Appreciate it.
Okay, moving forward into business arising from delegations. Yeah. Yeah, can we take a 5-minute break, please? Yes, Counselor Choba.
I'll make a motion to accept this information.
Motion on the floor to accept this information. Any further discussion? Call question those in favor. That is carried. 5-minute recess, please.
And 5,
No.
4, 3, 2, 1.
Keep moving forward into business arising from delegations, supplementary security proposals. Jeff, the floor is yours.
Thank you. So the purpose of this report is to bring back possible considerations to council concerning the provision of supplementary security services to the town of Slave Lake. So at the regular meeting of council on May 21st, council made a motion for administration to research and bring back proposals to council concerning the potential to provide supplementary security services to the town of Slave Lake. Administration reached out to the following companies and requested proposals relating to these providing these supplementary services. So Apex Security, which you heard from tonight, GSP Security Group, Haywork Security Driving Services out of Edmonton. All three of these proposals have been attached to this report for consideration and review by council. All three proposals offer different levels of service ranging from observe and report, which was GSP's model, to a full service public security unit, which was Apex, which was just presented this evening, with the provision of community peace officer services through official appointment. All information concerning these three proposals that have been received from each provider has been attached to this report, or the Apex delegation previously heard this evening. Options. So council has a number of options available to them for consideration this evening. Given the wide variety of services being provided and applicable costs, council may request administration to further examine a particular proposal, request a modification relating to the scope, or bring additional options for consideration. In addition, council has the potential to authorize your municipal police service, the RCMP, to bring in additional resources and manpower through the use of enhanced policing contracts. Council would have the ability to authorize the RCMP to bring in resources on overtime from current detachment resources and or other detachments throughout the province and dictate the scope of work allocated to these additional resources. Other communities have utilized this option for a variety of purposes, such as enhanced patrols due to increased criminal activity, or even public relations events such as red surge duties, which the town of Banff actually utilizes quite effectively for a number of years. Further discussions would need to take place with the RCMP to ensure they'd be able to fulfill this new mandate once a budget and scope was determined. Council has the option to allocate a budget to this project this evening and fund the initiative selected accordingly should they choose to proceed. All of these provisions above the three-party or private security options and the RCMP enhanced policing would all require the allocation of additional funds from unrestricted surplus balances. Depending on the solution selected, if applicable, internal procedures and policy may need to be considered and modified accordingly. All three proposals for supplementary security indicate a willingness to work alongside and with our municipal police service. Yeah, that's all I have for you for consideration tonight. So you'll see attached as appendices to the report information from Apex regarding their proposal, and 2 quotes from GPS regarding a 12-hour or 24-hour proposal, and a proposal which is very limited in information or scope from HSDS Security Services and pricing from Haywork. Any questions?
Councilor Hughes.
We'll kick this off. First question, the enhanced policing contract. Can you unpack that a little bit more for me in terms of, I know we had the crew unit here. What exactly does this look like if we were to pursue this angle?
Yeah, so the easiest way I can explain it to you is what Banff is using it for. So the council of Banff or the town of Banff, historically over a number of years, even when I was still in the RCMP, had a set aside or recognized that because of its proximity to Calgary and it's a tourist destination sort of location, especially at nighttime. If you've ever been in Banff at night on the weekends, it's very busy. The bars are very busy. Nightclubs open up and that nightlife atmosphere starts to take effect. You have a lot of stags and different groups of parties and a high influx of people even just coming for the evening. So to enhance the RCMP presence for that, the town allocated a budget on an annual basis to the RCMP detachment to bring in extra bodies or extra members to provide extra uniform patrol. So their whole duty for that, or their whole scope of duty for that night, is to assist the detachment members in providing extra, so doing bar walks and responding to calls for service, kind of keeping the peace and, essentially doubling the police force for, a Friday night and a Saturday night or a long weekend or whatever the case may be. Typically, those officers were coming from other detachments on an overtime basis. They were maybe they work plain clothes during the week, Monday to Friday in Calgary, but they want to come pick an overtime shift up or two. So they come out specifically for that purpose. They're given a specific mandate as to what they're meant to do. Grab a radio, be visible, go out and walk the bars, walk the streets. That's their mandate. They've also used that same program, recognizing they're a tourist destination and there's a lot of international tourists that will come to Banff, and they'll actually pay a police officer to wear the red serge and walk up and down Main Street and take pictures with tourists on a 4-hour basis. And so that's a priority of council to help supplement that draw to the community in Canadiana, if you will, to have a member in red serge essentially being a poster boy or girl walking up and down the street and taking pictures with tourists. So that's the easiest way to explain it. It's different than some of these other specialized units or enhanced patrols, which are just one-off sort of solutions. Council would have the ability to set a budget, say you have X number of dollars for overtime. This is what we want it spent on. Go to it, kind of thing.
Okay, thank you.
The other, like I mentioned in my report, the other key there is to make sure that they can fulfill those spots. The other piece to this puzzle is that you can set a budget, but if they can't find the members to work the overtime, then the money just sits there unspent, right? So it could be as small, you're not committing to a police officer or an increase for a year-over-year basis. It's a one-time sort of shot, 50 grand, 100 or whatever that number is. You set the budget, you give it to them and they just start utilizing it for that purpose, right? So
That solution as well would take time, I'm assuming, like weeks, months, like how, if we were to say tomorrow, we wanted this, how long would it take for it to actually be actioned?
I don't think it would take that long, to be honest.
Really?
There might be the term of the agreement, but then it just becomes a call letter for overtime. Right. And it would be an advertisement internally saying, hey, we've got overtime shifts in Slave Lake. Shift is from 12 at midnight till 8 in the morning. We've got 3 shifts, Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday night, whatever the case may be. And then they start
And
filling them.
so within what you're saying, we at this table or the town of Slave Lake can dictate exactly what we want them to do, the times that we want to see them out. Because I don't want it to be a thing of saying,
Yeah.
well, the data says this, because we know that the data is inaccurate.
No, you would have the ability to set the parameters as it relates to, from my experience, as it relates to what you intend those funds to be used for, right? I mean, they have overtime budgets on part of the detachment and their operations as it is right now, right? So they could be, on a regular shift and they investigate or they pull over an impaired driver at the end of the shift and it takes them 3 hours longer to do, or they get called out in the middle of the night if they're on call. There's overtime for that. This is very specific to the purpose that you're looking for.
Interesting that this hasn't been brought forward as
As
an
a
option
solution, yeah.
in any.
Yeah, in a roundabout way, it was discussed at the very end of the meeting today. Although they didn't use the term enhanced policing, they were specifically relating to.
They asked in cabinet meeting today, the sergeants indicated that the province may be able to supply additional resources should we request it.
I think he was misexplaining. He was speaking about this.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Councillor Adams.
So tying off of that, how does it work where we currently stipulate that we want 2 officers funded, that we do additional over what they said that GIS, or sorry, what's the abbreviation again? I keep saying GIS, but I know it's.
Well, they have sorry, I didn't hear
is?
the beginning of your question. I'm not understanding it. So they have a GIS unit here. Is that
Okay,
you're
thank
referring
you.
to?
It is, yes. So
Yes.
we fund that currently, and we
Correct.
stipulate we want 2 people in that or whatever we do. What does it look like, or how does it work if we say we want 4 people?
In that unit?
Sure.
Yeah, so that would be a permanent adjustment to staffing,
Yep.
right? So that would be an adjustment to, essentially on a yearly basis, we touch base with the RCMP in terms of our current establishment, what we're currently asking for as part of our policing agreement. If we anticipate any sort of change in that, so if council wants to permanently increase the number of members that we have, that we pay for as part of our municipal police service, you absolutely can do that. We just make an amendment to the agreement. Takes a little bit of time for them to build up or get that position in place, but you definitely could do that. And it's the same breath, you can remove positions as well.
So where are we at? We're sitting here, we're currently trying to fund for 13. They're recommending 11.5. And we're stating, and we can't totally fully fund they can't supply 13 officers on a full-time basis, correct?
Typically, that's the case, right? So what we could, 13 is what they're authorized to use. Sometimes it could be actually more, depending on when members transfer and maybe someone that's leaving hasn't sold the house yet, but the replacement shows up. If everything else was the same, you actually could end up we could end up paying for 13.5 in those cases. But traditionally, it goes the other way. So we have members that are, their transfers in that gap, they leave before the replacement comes. So there's a couple months in there that maybe that chair or that position wasn't full. Well, that starts to take away from the 13 members that we pay for overall over the course of the year. It becomes maybe 12.8 now because we lost a few months there. If you had a member become injured for anything over the 30 days, that comes off that 13 member total. If you have a member that maybe is on takes a parental or maternity leave, that comes off that 13 total. So it's not necessarily that they can't fill the chairs, but sometimes there's extended leave that we don't necessarily have to cover the cost of, but it takes away from what the year end, how many members we paid for at the year end.
So my understanding is from what we pay currently, the $2.5 million budget or whatever we have for policing, it's not as simple as taking 13 divided by 2 to 2.5. It's, if we want to add 2 officers, what are we looking at for
on average, based on what we pay right now, an additional police officer on a full-time basis is about 150, 160 grand. And that's at our 70%.
and then that would be includes the additional cost for the vehicles, the upgrading of equipment, that kind of stuff.
All that would be
Right,
factored
okay.
into an officer's
We just
cost.
have mics down a little bit. There's,
Lots of feedback.
sorry, Ashley, thank you. It just keeps ringing. Anything else, Steve?
Yeah, we'll keep going.
Oh, yeah, keep.
All right. Okay, so looking through these reports that are on here, and from what I'm understanding, we're looking at the one proposal by Apex is hitting over $1 million as an impact, which would be about 12% increase in taxes,
Give or take.
give or take. And that's for 8 people, which would essentially give us a shift of 2 and 2. So 4 people a day, just to compare
24
to.
hours, yeah.
That's my
$100
understanding. Yeah,
TNT,
that's my
right?
understanding of their proposal. Yeah.
Okay. So
That's including, they also build in there their dispatch, that's including their training, that's including their uniform equipment, that's including their vehicles, their capital.
So what we're currently dealing with in our community and what's taking up the RCMP time, do we have a way of understanding how much of that is low criminality is? They're saying that's their limit in help and above. So how much workload would we actually be alleviating from the RCMP for $1 million compared to giving $1 million to the RCMP to expand their force? Like where I'm struggling is where at this point, if there's an appetite to spend $1 million, which I don't have, where's your money better spent?
I also struggle with the fact that we already pay, sorry.
No,
sorry,
go ahead.
I'm jumping in here. I struggle with the fact that we pay as taxpayers collectively around $2.5 million for our municipal policing contract, of which we don't have a say in a lot of what occurs. We don't have the ability, there's a significant lack of control when it comes to the municipality, and the federal government provides, as they have done in the previous year, so generous back pay amounts to over $500,000 that occurs annually. So I am extremely frustrated, putting it mildly, that we even have to consider supplementing our municipal police force because as we all know, in order to lower our tax rates, we're fiscally responsible, but we need to increase housing and we need to increase the tax base. Those things take time. So the only direct way to finance something such as this would be to increase taxes. So I'm with Councillor Adams on, even the $500,000 a year isn't where it was like 600,000 for just daytime shifts isn't particularly palatable. And I'm just mortified that we have to consider something like this. So I guess that's more of an opinion side than Apex. Their presentation was fabulous. I agree, they're very professional. I just, the dollar value, I struggle with. I used to use your line. I struggle with that. I struggle with the dollar value on that and the tax increase that's related to. Now, we do have some other proposals in here. So there are a couple, and those range from 12,000 for security services-ish. I'll find it. Monthly, yes, I'm talking about a month. I'm moving it down to a month cost, because in my opinion, what would be more palatable to me if we are going to pursue this is to do something on more of a trial basis. To do it on a 1 month thing. The other concern I have, well, not concern, but we're very thankful that the Citizens on Patrol has started operating, or will be starting operating soon. I understand that there's training that I believe is occurring today. So if we're going to be hiring a security service that is essentially patrolling and evening hours, is the security service just duplicating the efforts of a citizens on patrol, which businesses have already donated to. So I don't think on the bare minimum cost of things, the evening patrol services isn't enough for me, because again, it would be duplicating something there. So Councillor Hughes, you can weigh in.
Yeah, sorry, I'd love to weigh in. So just as I guess I want to kind of focus in on the central discussion point that we really want to have here, which from the motion of the last meeting was technically to deal in what I would call a short-term issue with some rampant activity that is occurring in the northwest and southwest areas of town. The initial motion to me, at least in the context that we discussed it, is not to hire an annual firm to do the RCMP's job or facilitate with them at this point in time. For me, it was more of a, let's try this short-term solution. Let's get some extra boots on the ground and have people in the area making these people uncomfortable, observing and reporting, but at a higher level, and kind of holding our local detachment accountable. I think that is sort of what I am looking for. While Apex's, presentation was obviously outstanding, they're definitely, a gold level of service. I don't know that I feel that we need that right now. We are not Grand Prairie at this point in time, and the amount of money is obviously not something I would be comfortable with doing by any means. But what I'm looking for is sort of that middle ground, I guess, if you will, just somebody to kind of be that presence in response within the areas that we are seeing residents say that they feel unsafe and that they have concerns, and they don't necessarily feel that they are being followed up with locally, right? That's where I think for me, that's my focus today with this conversation. It's not about should we have annual extra security that we should spend $1 million on. So
I think you'll find with some of these, and it's evident, or it's not hard to see. The more complex the solution that you're looking for, the longer term it's going to take for them to either acquire staff. Like, for example, Apex, I don't believe they have 8 staff ready to start in Slave Lake tomorrow, right? So there's a ramp up time. And so a month by month sort of solution isn't a viable solution for an organization to hire staff, to train, to acquire capital, to do those things. So the more what I'm trying to say is the more complicated response that you're looking for, companies are not going to come and be interested in providing those services on a month by month basis, right? You probably could, out of these proposals that you have here today, for example, the GSP, the GPS, I think it's GSP, maybe it's GPS, whatever they that company's options probably could start tomorrow, but it's an observe and patrol sort of model. Right? Easy to staff, have people here already, put them in cars, driving around, they see something suspicious, they call it in. That easily could achieve your time frame that you're looking for, Councillor. But if you're looking for that more interaction, that Apex sort of solution, which is exactly really what they're pitching, is that sort of direct involvement, dealing with encampments, dealing with those things, you're likely going to have to commit to a longer term for a company like that to provide a service other than RCMP.
Councilor Adams.
To that note, Apex did provide a quote within there at reduced hours,
It's
depending where you want to, still $500,000.
and daytime.
But it's reduced and it depends where it is, but is our incidence in the Northwest, I feel is a different beast compared to what the overall piece they were pitching earlier. Is it happening at night or is it happening during the day? Where the incidents we're hearing are typically during the 12-hour period during the day,
Evening.
correct? Or am I wrong?
I would say as far as my conversations with residents in that area, there's daytime activity, but nighttime is generally where the more unsafe feelings are
Our industrial
happening.
break-ins,
Yes.
our industrial break-ins from what I've heard, and it's anecdotal, of course, because again, this is just
Right.
residents and businesses that I've had contact with, but it's mostly evening patrols. And the daytime shift is generally able, from my understanding, the local detachment is able to handle that and address the calls that are happening during the day. The response time is down for that. When we move into the evening hours and you have less members on shift, then we have additional challenges.
But I think the ones in the evening typically wouldn't mandate an RCMP response over liaison worker response. It's more to do this, and maybe I'm wrong. That's just how I'm interpreting it. I'd almost rather see like if it's going to be an observe and report piece, I'd almost rather see the drone idea that we've heard of in the past over boots on the ground. One, cost effectiveness, two, how fast that response can be. But if we're looking for that interaction with people that's on the low criminality level, like they were commenting on, my understanding is that happens more during the day, because to have a guy driving around in a truck throughout, I'm sorry, I don't think they're going to catch people driving through the industrial zone to see what's going on randomly in the large area we have driving up and down streets, compared to a drone hovering 100 feet above the ground going, there's a guy, and there's a guy. So where we put our money, I think a lot has to do with what our goal is. Is it evening? Is it daytime? Is it interacting with the people? Is it observe and report and get the RCMP in there?
I think my goal personally is to put pressure on criminals, and a lot of that involves visibility. And we've heard from our detachment that, without more officers, visibility cannot increase. So, I think and that's, I believe, where part of the need from the citizens on patrol was born out of, was
Mhm.
increasing visibility so that there is the awareness that someone is driving around, that someone will see you, and no, you're not always going to catch a criminal in the act of something, because you might not be on that end of town at the time that the crime is occurring, but it's about a physical presence, just like when you see an RCMP or a bylaw or a peace officer parked in a school zone.
Mhm.
Right? They might not be
Yeah.
issuing tickets, but there is that perception. You've seen them in the school zone 3 times this week, so you slow down. So there are some things in human nature I find habit-wise that would occur because of visibility. So for me, it's more of a visibility aspect, and that's why I'm on, I love the Apex proposal, but I don't believe it's the right fit for us. And I understand what the CAO's point here is saying, that, the more complex the solution, obviously, that's going to increase costs and increase terms. So now we're looking at proposals that would involve shorter terms, or potential shorter terms. You could have the GPS, or you could have the HSDS security services come in probably within the week. But again, is that replicating something that's already going to occur, and what value does it add for the cost? Councilor Ferguson first.
I think we need to decide, do we want something a little more hands-on, or are we just looking for eyes and ears? And for myself, I want something a little more hands-on. Jeff, have we had any discussions with the RCMP, what the cost would be to enhance RCMP services over the summer months? Like, do we know any ballpark figures, what that would look like, or is that discussions that would have to be had with a detachment?
You have to hire officers. That's the only
Well,
way.
you can bring them in as overtime. You'd mentioned earlier as one of the options to help supplement.
No, you could set, I guess the first answer is no, I haven't had any specific questions as it relates to that, but it's really not so much they provide us a cost, it's you provide them a budget. So if you have a dollar amount in mind that you want to spend on enhanced policing, essentially, a member on double overtime, they would typically be off shift or on days off, right? So they'd be paid at a rate of 2 times their annual salary. So you're looking at about $100 an hour, give or take, for an officer on overtime. So, divide that by however many $1,000 you want to put to the budget. That's how many hours you're going to get out of it. There's no other extra cost. There's no other extra cost for gas or fuel or anything, in a roundabout way, we're paying for that through our operations anyway. But if you were to budget $100 an hour, it would probably be close-ish to what that would cost.
If you do 10 hours a night, so you're not doing a full 12-hour shift and you do $100 an hour, $30,000. And I get what you're saying, something a little more hands-on, someone who has the actual authority to arrest, and I'm not saying that in my opinion, that's wrong. But I struggle throwing additional money at a system that I don't necessarily believe is fully working or has lived up to my personal expectations.
disagree.
So I'll choose my words carefully on that. I fully respect law enforcement, but I struggle throwing additional money at the problem that I don't know it's gonna fix.
2 comments, I guess, in relation to that. One I'd bring to bear are we currently then, if this is such a big issue, understaffed as far as RCMP goes or underfunded from us to the point that they cannot be as effective as what they could be if they were fully staffed. So by adding an extra 2 officers, can suddenly we see a huge impact in what we're doing, or 3 officers, or whatever the case may be. Like this is where I'm wondering is, but the complexities of the incidents have increased, right? It's not like it used to be, not as simple as it used to be. So that would be one thing I would ask is where would we be with having additional RCMP officers? Are they then able to do their job more effectively? Because even the paperwork, I'm sure, has changed from the 80s to now. That's required. The other piece I'd comment on what we want to be.
Are you saying I was in the 80s when I was policing?
No, you were
Okay.
born in the 80s.
All
Is more at a hybrid model is what we should be looking at rather than focusing on one or the other. Because I kind of like your idea of that incident piece where it's triage is what we're dealing with, but we do need a long-term vision on what we're going to do.
Agreed.
So maybe we can put that Band-Aid on real quick right now, but by doing the observe and report thing, much like Mayor Ward has commented on, or the duplication of services, I'd almost rather see us fund a little bit to get that off the ground if that was something necessary than go out and hire a security service that is observing and reporting. The other models that we can kind of blend together are, in my opinion, I think the solution would be additional RCMP and a drone kind of idea and see how that works, or phase it in, one or the other.
But we are able to take this back. Obviously, it says Jeff provided options saying, modify scope. It sounds like there's interest to find out more accurate costs and a timeline. If we said, hey, here's a budget of 30,000, 40,000, 50,000, whatever it is, what would that get us? Would that get us a month of overtime? Is that gonna get us 2 weeks of overtime? And I think a more firm idea, and like, is this, I understand that Alberta RCMP are across Canada are significantly understaffed, as are our sheriffs. So is this something that they think is feasible for our region? Is what I would like to see information come back. And then I'm not opposed to pricing on the drone coverage that GP has. Just because if we're doing the observe and report, I think we are going to be duplicating what's formed with Citizens on Patrol. And I don't know that throwing this substantial amount of money at it, you know, even 50,000, which would ultimately be what one of the proposals is, that's a 0.5% tax increase. And it's not all about, you know, percent tax increases and that, but at the end of the day, we also have to make sure that what we're doing is the most cost-effective option, in my opinion. So I agree with the proposals. If we had $1 million that could just fall from our lap, yes, I want the connections to the support services and I like the idea that, you know, it's more of a kind of basically taking over a peace officer role essentially, but that's just that reality. I don't know that we can substantiate the funding for. So now I have to look at what, in my opinion, we are able to fund. So additional RCMP, yes, although I'm not convinced necessarily on that as of yet. Maybe with additional pricing, I will be. And the drone coverage is definitely is something different, as it does provide video coverage of, it would mostly be a business thing, not private residence, but that's where the majority of the crime is happening. So I think I would like to see something, additional things come back at this point in time, because I don't agree that these proposals are going to do what we want them to. Councilor Adams.
You touched on one there where you're saying it's almost like a peace officer bylaw piece. Now, going through what we know our budgetary numbers are, going through what these proposals are, if you work it backwards, it's almost a more cost-effective option than running our own bylaw and peace officer, contracting it out
On a per,
on a per,
potentially, yeah, I mean, it is, you are like
right? So it's a matter of
100% higher,
maybe
more.
even that's something to explore as an option as well. It's maybe then we're getting shorter hours from them, but we're getting more. Yeah,
Like-
than taking on everything ourselves.
Yeah,
By
if you were to
contracting
scale it
out.
up, right? I mean, right now you're comparing essentially.
Yes, I know.
24-hour coverage with a staff of eight compared to one guy.
Yeah.
Right?
But I know, I'm not even saying the full staff of 8, cut that down to 4, so it's daylight hours, cut that down to 2 if you want.
Right.
So it's reduced
Yeah.
hours.
Yeah.
I think that the impact for dollar and support services that are behind that, we don't have to look after. We don't have to worry about a whole bunch of additional issues there that come budget time, I would say we need to explore that as an option. And I'm just thinking that from the
For
comment
peace
you made.
officer wise, yeah, I understand that. I understand for peace
Anyways.
officer bylaw wise, that at budget time, that's a further consideration. I'm happy to look at that. That's interesting. For right now, I don't think that these proposals are going to do what we need. So that's where I guess the question comes back is, with additional RCMP coverage, like we can throw money at it, what does that look like? Cause I don't really want to, commit to that without having additional information on what that would provide. Cause again, I'm not necessarily confident in that. Anyone else want to weigh in? Want to say anything?
Okay. Yeah, I'm just trying to process this and really weigh both sides. I see what you guys are both saying about future plans. I love the, idea of the drone possibility, and I think we have some pre-planning, if you will, to consider, especially come budget time. But again, for me right now at this point, I'm looking for that kind of quick hit, short-term solution to have these people be uncomfortable with the crime that they are committing. And I mean, honestly, if you sit and talk to people who live in the Northwest for one day, they know the comings and goings of these people. They know where a lot of these issues are. And so I just feel like for us to have communication, even over a 2-3 week span, to try to make them uncomfortable. And you know what I mean? I can't help but feel like that will have some sort of impact to the people that have gone through a lot, given the current situation. It's very frustrating, and it's extremely disheartening for me to sit here and think that we can't do anything to help those, specific areas of town, after what has happened the last couple months. I don't know that I think that we shouldn't. You know, I think that we kind of have a responsibility to our citizens to make things right and to make people feel safe. I agree that there's only a certain level of effectiveness with this, but like the one proposal that did stand out to me was actually the HSDS one. Just for a couple of different reasons. They said that they're retired law enforcement military, which I really liked. I've actually have heard of them before as well. And I like that they said they can provide daily reports to council about updating activities they have observed and dealt with. And, you know, you're always talking about data, Steve. I think there could be some power in us kind of having a communication like this short term to really understand the complexity and the issues that we have. And like I said, I spend 48 hours talking to people and I understand, you know, the paths they take and where they go. Like it doesn't take very long. I struggle to feel like we couldn't have some sort of impact for the people, you know, that really are hoping that we step up and do something now. Maybe it won't, maybe that's silly of me to think, but I also feel like it's our duty to try something. And I just don't like what I'm seeing. We've seen, you know, someone set someone's car on fire and like there's been an escalation in some of the activity. And I would just hate for us to ignore that in any way. I understand your points about the effectiveness for sure. I do. I know that these guys are not going to be, you know, arresting them. It says they'll capture the criminal behavior and identify the instigators, like at least their, you know, action. And it's something a little more formal. And I guess to your point about the citizens on patrol as well, I don't know how comfortable a group of our community citizens are going to feel. Like I know they're supposed to call the RCMP, but then again, that's the mechanism, right? We're relying on our own community members who are taxpayers to go out in the middle of the night and sip on coffee and watch our community and then call the RCMP and hope they come. This is a different opportunity for us to kind of understand the dynamics of what's going on, right? That's just how I look at it. But
And I'll give it to you in a second, Steve. I don't disagree with that. I like also, I've dealt with this group before as well, for security at a variety of events, so can speak to their professionalism in a variety of other manners, because we have used them before for things. It's whether or not the budget is palatable. So for this one, it's roughly,
yeah,
if I did my math right, it's roughly $50,000 for a 1 month test.
I was
period.
actually just about to ask that next because they don't
It's down
actually
below.
say it, but it's on the email. Yeah,
The math and then add the per diem amount, so it's 50,000 from.
Did you add in?
for 1 month. Yeah.
I added in the costs, I
And
believe.
well, and that was the other reason, because I came into this, you know, package, even thinking short-term solution. And this one says a 1 month test period would be a great indicator of the effectiveness. And that's kind of essentially what I'm, you know, looking towards. I really want to understand.
Assuming we were able to do like a 1 month rental of something and get a detail, it would probably be closer to, you know, 55,000, I would say.
It was close to $5,000 a day. for these
$5,000 a
guys.
day, that's not what I have, because I.
Yeah, you work out their hours, you work out the gas, you work out
Don't be a-
hotels, you work out expenses. I guess, you know, in respect to this, in respect to this submission, I have some concerns where, I mean, I don't have any experience with the company and nor should that necessarily pay any relevance in this, but
Yeah.
the quality of the submission was very low. It's not even on a document. It's not even on a letterhead. We had to summarize the pricing for them. So I question the level of professionalism that they're able to provide. I question the level of, you know, they may be retired members of law enforcement, but you also could have the same thing present in your Apex security staff that have got various levels of law enforcement experience or something. They, at the end of the day, they still only have the same ability as GPS has. Observe and report. They don't have any other special powers or abilities to execute anything more than a citizen would or any of these other groups would. You know, Apex could if they receive bylaw or CPO enforcement or authority, but they all have the same authority. And so my concern with this group, which is primarily, if you actually look at the name of the company, it's a driving company, right? They, you know, typically ex-members are providing let's say, driving services for maybe celebrities or maybe executives or whatever the case may be. So they've done VIP work in the past or part of their RCMP or policing career, and they're doing.
Personal experience, they've contracted to provide security at the legislature. We've used them for contract security for large events like 1,500 plus. So just from a perspective, like, I understand that their name is driving services and I understand the concern there, but I do know from personal experience that it is more than that. I understand that both provide the observe and report function, but it isn't just
And that may be the case, then maybe they need to invest more in their proposal or the ability to prepare their proposal, right? Because in all honesty, it was typed on a Word document with very little thought or effort. And so as an administrator that's looking out for the best of the interests of the town and what, you know, the contractors that are providing those services, this rates very low to me in terms of what kind of service are we going to expect if we can't even get a quote with the proper price on there, and we have to repeat it back to them in an email from our fire chief. That should speak enough to the quality of that service without having that experience. You can choose whoever you like. But that's my insight as it relates to this group.
I guess aside from critiquing their presentation that they gave to the town, do you have another concern regarding them?
I don't know that it's necessarily providing anything more than what you're getting from the others at a more expensive cost. I mean, if you look at the estimate. So they're operating in two-person teams, so $85 per hour per person. So there's $170 right there per hour. Do it on a 10-hour shift or whatever the case, or, you know, if we're comparing it apples to apples, that's $1,700 for a 10-hour shift, $3,400 for a 20-hour shift. And then we haven't included hotels. We haven't included gas. For a 24-hour coverage, you're very close to $5,000. Or observe and report. In contrast, you could have GPS do the exact same service 7 days a week, 2 staff on for 25 grand. The other concern I have with this submission with this company is the things sometimes that they're saying that they can do, whether it was included in this or in other conversations, right, causes me a little bit of concern as to what liability maybe it brings us into. If they're too aggressive or they're too hands-on and they don't have any authority to do so, you know, what potential risk does that bring the organization? What potential risk does that bring the town who employs or has hired them to act on our behalf, right? So I have some concerns regarding that liability. I have some concerns regarding what service are they actually providing.
I believe in here it says that they have the same liability insurance as the others.
They may have, yeah, but they're also, you know, purporting to have more interaction and dealing with difficult people.
That's kind of what I liked about it. Right? Because are we going to spend the money on a rent-a-cop, or are we going to get people that will kind of be like, hey, I want the uncomfortable factor, I think.
But these guys don't have any more authority to do that, though.
GPS has horrible reviews online as well. So now.
Well, I'll let someone else weigh in.
Councillor Choba.
So I struggle a lot with this because, of course, there's a cost factor to all of them. But when I think about it, it's also tied heavily to our policing as well, which is whoever we get in, they might not be able to do exactly what the RCMP will do for us. So we still need to report to the RCMP, or we still need to count on these individuals to report to the RCMP and for the RCMP to at least do something. And so when I start to hear figures of thousands, I almost feel like it's worth it for us to look into what that would look like to pitch some of that idea to the RCMP, like the CAO had suggested in terms of overtime hours, but also keeping in mind that this is probably something that will hang around our community for a bit. And so should we now just focus on more of a long-term solution because we could cough out X amount of dollars every month for a short period and see that it's not going away and we still need our CMP present. And so can we then just start looking at having those difficult conversations around what does it take to get our CMP?
I just feel like that may be kicking the can down the road is all I'm saying. I totally agree with the long-term approach, but I'm just, again, to the motion of last week, it was more about the short-term effects of helping people in those particular areas that are experiencing this daily, nightly, et cetera. Councilor Adams.
I like the idea. Right now, I'm not prepared for us to commit to $1 million solution outside of budget. I think that is crazy. So that's off the table. For the short-term piece, I figure in my opinion, our quickest response, our most effective response as far as their capacity to actually police are the police. I think our short-term answer is to direct where the overtime is, because we can direct what it's used for, correct?
Correct.
So we can direct that we want overtime and RCMP used in the northwest section of town or southwest or wherever the hot spot we figure it is. We can direct that. That gets our immediate response, which I think is going to be a lot more effective than actually any of these three options for the short term. Then we need to reevaluate for our long term within our budget and determine where we're going to go with that. If it's going to mean something with the province in requesting provincial police support, does it mean expanding our commitment to RCMP within here because it is partially funded by the federal government? Or do we look at going out on another limb with like an Apex option, for example? That's all at budget time. But for right now, to get the authority we need and the responsive we need, like how quick we can do it, I think the RCMP overtime piece is our answer. May not be our most favorable answer, but I think it's the best answer with what we have.
I think we should definitely get costs back on it and quickly. If possible.
Yeah, I can have the discussion. Cost, like I said, is going to be. If it works, you could set the cost and they can tell you what they get.
Right,
I
but
mean,
if we're gonna say it's $50,000 and it's 1 week of coverage, I'm gonna have a problem with that.
yeah, no, I don't think they would. You could,
But we can set a budget.
yeah, and you
say,
can set how you want it spent too. You could say 2 members. Let's identify a shift, one shift a week.
I
or whatever.
understand what you're saying, but I think it's irresponsible to say, hey, just set your budget and they'll tell you what the overtime shift.
Yeah,
is.
we
Don't
can have
tell
that
me-
discussion. The
Tell
other,
me-
the other flip to that though is this overtime for them would be voluntary.
I understand that,
So-
so it's not guaranteed.
That's right. That is the caveat is that if they don't have members sticking their hand up that want to work extra, then you're not going to fill shifts. Yeah.
So again, we're kicking the can down the road and going on a
Potentially.
maybe.
Yeah,
Yes.
potentially. Yeah.
Whereas we have a short-term solution now, you know, you made a comment about immediate action. I guess it obviously, I know it depends on, you know, the type of call that it is, but some of the residents that I spoke with did not get immediate action as well. And so I would say that I think some of them would appreciate feeling this kind of presence that's there at night, someone who has their back and is looking out for them for this activity to try to understand. And again, you know, I think for me, I kind of want this to be an accountability factor. I like the idea of reporting back to us to try to help us better understand the situation that we're dealing with here locally, because the data and the presentations that we get are not accurate. Not everybody is calling those things in. We all know this, right? We all can very well agree on that. And I just feel like, as it was brought up tonight, the taxpayers in this community are spending $2.5 million on the RCMP already. I think I would like to understand, you know, if they are coming to the call at this call at this hour. And I just want that check, you know, a check and balance, if you will, is I think what I'm looking for alongside of a short-term solution to hopefully, you know, curb some of this activity that we are seeing.
Okay, I understand that. So then I guess I would ask, you're wanting the HSDS proposal. You like the look of that. The quick numbers on that from mine to compare the 12-hour shifts in the other one. So that's what I assumed. You got $85 an hour for 2 people at 12 hours for 30 days. is $61,200. You've got $100 a day for each truck plus $30 times 30, that's $9,000. You've got hotels, let's assume we got a nice one. Like cheapy, we got a deal, $100 a night. Multiplied by 30, that's 2 hotel rooms, so that's $6,000. So we're already approaching $77,000 on this. And is that where your appetite is at, is to spend roughly 80 grand for this? I'm just wondering if that is, then that opens up other doors that we can discuss and see what we can get for 80 grand. But that's,
And I will say I didn't deal with this company. Alex had dealt with this company, but there was some indication that they're doing quite a lot of work for the Oilers right now and Stanley Cup playoffs. So their availability might not be to start tomorrow either necessarily. So I just want to throw that out there, that there was some of that discussion as it relates to.
It says on here, they have at their disposal up to 20 contractors that can provide tier 2 security for issues.
Okay, but I know that there was some discussion about the Oilers and that they were busy with the Oilers currently.
All right. I mean, to answer your question, Councillor Adams, do I want to spend the money? Absolutely not. Of course I don't, but I do feel like given the current circumstances, we need to do something. I think ignoring it or kicking the can down the road is not going to help the citizens of Slave Lake, the people who have been telling us that they do not feel safe. So, I mean, I guess, can you put a price on that? I don't know. I like, it's not something I want to do. I don't want to have to spend the money in the first place, but here we are.
but if we had an appetite for that $80,000 spend per month. Because I don't think this solution is going to be solved in 2 weeks or a month. This is going to be a commitment now for multiple months.
Agreed. We don't
So
know. We don't know what we don't
just-
know. I just
can I
like that you
finish?
said 1 month test trial was my other thing, like that they're willing to work with us over a 1 month period.
Okay.
Go ahead.
What I'm trying to say is that $80,000, I think if that is our appetite, we can go out and find a solution that I think is better than the HSDS solution for
Okay.
$80,000.
And what would that be for you?
I don't know what it is. I'm saying there's got to be a better option because the other ones multiply out cheaper than that per month. I mean, that works out to be $1 million a year as well
So the.
for 2 guys.
So for alternative for
Right?
the GPS.
So-
It's 12,000, I believe, for just the 12-hour coverage, I think.
And that's just observe response. You don't touch
They're offering the
anything.
exact same thing for the quotes.
Well, his little description, there was a little more, they get a little more handsy.
Handsy, but
Yeah,
But-
they do.
That, again, I'm worried about liability, as I've asked that question of every party, or anytime we have it, is our liability. I am concerned about the situation that may happen if it escalates. And I'm sorry, a $5 million thing that floors me that it's that low, because I'm sorry, you accidentally do whatever to a person, it's gonna be more than $5 million. So that comes back again onto us and what we're willing to take on as risk. You look, RCMP gets nailed for something where they excessive force or whatever the case may be, that's on the RCMP. That's not coming back to the taxpayer here. Well, it does eventually, but well, long and short of it is I want the best bang for our buck. And I don't know if $80,000 to HSDS would be the best bang. If our appetite's 80 grand, then let's explore what we can get for 80 grand.
Give me a moment. I agree with Councillor Adams' points on a few things. And I agree with both of you, which
Shocker.
no, we're not, no one's on opposite ends here, but it's the $80,000 that for 1 month is what I struggle with. And what I also think, and I keep saying I struggle with, you've created a phrase that we all now use, so I need to stop saying that. We have $80,000 would be used effectively for 1 month. I do believe that this will be a multiple month issue. So then that continues on. And I don't think it's going to end at 1 month. And I understand that we need to protect our residents and I understand that we need to protect our businesses. And I am not happy with the level of criminal activity and I'm not happy with the response to it. I'm not happy with either of those things. I would like more information on, more so for comparative purposes than throwing additional money necessarily at law enforcement, is what these types of dollar figures would buy us from our existing municipal police contract. So if we did say $80,000 was appropriate, does that get us 2 months of overtime? What does that get us? And does the Eastern District feel that those shifts are going to be able to be sustained or picked up? And so I think there are some pieces of information there that in my mind, I'm missing. And I don't want to wait 2 months to get this information. Like, I want this information within a week per se from our detachment in order to go and take a look at these with that information in there. So it's like, okay, well, we'll go with it. We all understand. I don't believe anyone is on board for the $1 million contract right now outside of budget time. So if we're taking Apex off the table for now to discuss it budget, then we're looking at security services. So these two security service proposals, arguably the same thing. One costs $77,000 for a 12-hour shift. One costs $12,500 for a 12-hour shift. Observe and report. We do have citizens on patrol, which are being trained, which will also be observe and report. So I think my one piece of information that I'm missing is what between that 12 and let's call it 80,000, what our existing policing contract, given that a police officer to add additional staff, it's approximately 150, 170,000 with benefits and all the other things supplied. So what do we get for 80? Is it worth it then to just go to 170 and request that an additional member? How long does it take to get an additional member? And what is that going to afford us? Is that going to give us 24/7 coverage? I haven't really had a good answer yet on and I've asked a few times, but haven't really had anything definitive on what it would take to get 24/7 coverage so that we have that level. And I think those are some of the answers that in my mind I would like quickly in order to be able to compare all the same things. Do I love the idea of throwing additional money at it? No. Do I agree that we're probably going to have to spend something given the level of criminal activity? Yes. But is the RCMP option 40? I don't know. That's kind of where that's where my brain's at. And it's not a situation that any one of us want to be in.
No.
So it's not fun conversations. And I really struggle. Like if it was my way, I'd have people in there. I'd have the Apex security in there. If I had unlimited funds, they'd be in there tomorrow because I think that's the answer. But I just don't know how we fund that. That's kind of that's where I have a heavy sigh about all of this. I think that's the answer.
In summary, kind of like so are you feeling like with the citizens on patrol in action, if you will, that kind of takes the place of this, but adding in that RCMP will just give that extra, like, that's what you're saying? It should be a possibility towards success of what we want to see.
That's what I am saying, because citizens on patrol, they're trained properly. It's observe and report. Maybe there's a proposal that comes from them with regards to our community piece. There's potential options there. And then adding in, because the piece that we're missing is, so obviously we have the observe and report, and if citizens on patrol is able to do that, and again, they're just starting up, so this will take time, but if we have the observe and report piece, and then the other piece in my mind that we're missing to all of this is the actual enforcement piece, and that can only be done by certain individuals. And I don't see, other than continuing to advocate for provincial resources and perhaps sheriffs to do some coverage shifts that I don't know that we'll necessarily get. We can advocate for anything in the world. We will continue to do that. We have to kind of look at what's in our disposal. So yes, your summary is just added a whole lot more words to that, but yes, that's kind of where I'm making the pathway to. Because Citizens on Patrol has been effective in a variety of other communities. You see the signs up elsewhere. It's that presence that, you know, the neighborhood, the town is watching for each other, and they're doing the exact same thing that paying security to drive around per month would do. Now, granted, that's guaranteed. This is a volunteer base. There's different complexities. But we haven't given them even the time to operate to see what's possible. So that's what I've come to with a lot of hand gestures and rambling.
Okay.
Is what I would like to see more information on the RCMPs. Councillor Adams.
Kind of a tangent here, but we
I
keep
just went
mentioning,
on one, so.
we keep mentioning Citizens on Patrol. Do you have information to share to the public as far as where they go, who they contact, site, website, Facebook, anything? Because
There is a Facebook page. I don't have all the details, but there is a Facebook page, like Citizens on Patrol. I'll double check that. I do know one of the board members is Mercedes Berger, but you're able to communicate through that Facebook page, and there's an email as well. Jeff, you want to weigh in for me?
Yeah, and they are coming to council as a delegation.
Fantastic. So they're also coming to council as a
Excellent.
delegation.
When will it be?
Actually,
Next Tuesday.
next Tuesday
Right.
at COW, so
So
7
how-
days.
Maybe. I have a proposal.
Hmm.
Perhaps.
I'll just give you a couple things here. So the motion that was made by Council Gramlich last week, the wording was Council Adams that made this, I guess. Directs administration to seek out security options for the town of Slave Lake to operate within the evenings and bring back options to a maximum budget of $20,000.
Yeah.
So that was the budget that was, or the motion that was passed, although the options here obviously clearly are outside that $20,000, or most of them are, I think that motion would be met. So if you're looking for something additional, you might have to be specific and make another motion as it relates to if you're doing your proposal in regard to RCMP.
So is that we table a decision on additional security services to next meeting? Given that we will have a presentation from Citizens on Patrol, so then we can ask direct questions of their board and what their intention is, and, you know, volunteers and some of the questions that we're looking at, because it does form part of the public safety aspect of our town. In the next week, I would also like the information from the RCMP as well, as to their overtime and details about that, as well as rough costs on what additional RCMP members look like. I keep throwing out 170,000, but I want to make sure that's accurate, and what that would give us. So priority A is the overtime piece that you had talked about, and priority B then would be what adding to that was. And then that way we've got Citizens on Patrol making a presentation. We've got these security proposals that we already have. And then we have the RCMP piece, and then we have all of that is my thought. Councillor Choman first, and then Councillor Adams.
Just to add to that, also a timeline for the RCMP piece, so that if they were looking at
Oh, yes.
adding, you know, what it would take to add more bodies, what is the timeline around that, so that we're not waiting forever?
Would there be value in requesting the staff sergeant to come and
I'll get,
answer any of those, or?
I'll get the information for you.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Would you like to wait?
No.
You don't want to.
I guess
You're so
I guess the only piece I wanted to talk about, a couple people here, especially Councillor Hughes, and then Mayor Ward spoke a little bit about HSDS. Councillor Hughes spoke pretty passionately about them. Is it possible to get a little more professional report or presentation from them? Because this is kind of like on the back of a napkin.
Yeah, this took 3 phone calls to get this.
Okay,
So I could reach out a 4th time, sure.
okay, well, I'll leave it with you then.
Okay, well, I think I'm sick of talking about this, to be honest. I hate to delay things another week yet again, but here we are. And I guess if Citizens on Patrol is coming next week, that makes a lot more sense to at least be able to question them. So I'm unhappily in agreement for right now, basically.
I don't like the delay either. I know that Citizens on Patrol training was tonight, so I think obviously that group has moved mountains to get going and get the insurance and get everything in place very quickly. So I'm not sure that they would have been ready to present any sooner, so.
Yeah, that makes sense. And
that's-
I also think this should be a discussion for hopefully the entire council to have.
Yeah, I
Hopefully, we will
agree.
all be present next Tuesday to have this important topic discussed.
What I would like to see is the full picture to summarize of options on the table. So we don't need, we'll need a motion to accept the report as information. It is business, is that right? Yes?
That could be
Okay,
fine.
so there's been information requests from administrations for next week. And then that way we have all the pieces and then can kind of expand beyond what we talked to here, because we're operating on some assumptions. On what overtime, maybe overtime policing costs $120,000 a month, and then the other proposals seem more reasonable. I don't know. And I don't want to operate on assumptions, so we'll have to I vote tabling for table till next time, so yeah.
Are you
I-
making a motion?
I will make a motion to accept the report as information and continue this discussion to next week's agenda.
With the revised.
With these reports, can you
proposals?
put these with the with the RCMP information? Okay, just a motion to table then. Thank you. I haven't had to do that yet. Okay, my motion on the floor. Is there any further discussion? Call the question, those in favor. And that is carried. Thank
We
you.
don't need to make a separate one for what we need next week.
I will,
No, I can get the RCMP piece.
Okay.
That's fine.
so I'd like these reports to come back in the agenda
Yeah, the same report will be in the next.
with the additions. Hi, Lori. Thank you for being patient during our rambling.
So the purpose of the report this evening is to consider first reading and schedule a required public hearing for bylaw number 12/2024. So a quick background: in October of 2023, bylaw number 19 rezoned 4 parcels of land for permanent shelter, proposed permanent shelter from CD to CDC, council direct control. Council then underwent extensive public consultation engagement to select this permanent location for the shelter site. That shelter site was located, and on May 21st, the development permit approving the establishment and operation of the permanent shelter was issued. So bylaw number 12 will now rezone those parcels not chosen for the permanent shelter back to the zoning that existed prior to the process beginning. So I think that's really all that council does have the option because it's our application to defeat the bylaw on first reading or amend the bylaw on first reading. However, I'm recommending that we give bylaw number 12/2024 first reading and schedule the required public hearing for July 2nd, 2024. Any questions?
Council Perks.
Let's make a motion here unless there's any other discussion. Move that bylaw number 12/24, which amends the land use district map of the land use bylaw, be redistricting as follows: lot 12, block 1, plan 2120278 from CDC Council Direct Control District to BI Business Industrial District and I Institutional District. Part of lot 4, block 3, plan 9123753 from CDC Council Direct Control District to Institutional District. Lot 7 and 8, block 8. Plan 1915 HW from CDC Council Direct Control District to C1 Downtown Commercial Mixed Use District receives first reading and the required public hearing be scheduled for July 2nd, 2024.
Motion on the floor. Any further discussion? Call
quite hear that.
You can do it next then.
call the question, those in favor. And that is carried. Continuing on, development permit fees for new developments.
Okay, so the purpose of this report is to present council the proposition of suspending fees associated with development permits for new construction in the domains of residential, commercial, and industrial developments. So the planning development fees bylaw number 04/2024 outlines requisite fees for various types of permits and services provided by the department. Permits pertinent to construction of new residential, commercial, or industrial are delineated as follows. So residential developments, we list out those new construction developments there. So single-family dwellings, additions to dwellings, garages, placement of mobile homes, and minor residential developments. sheds, decks, which would be minor, semi-detached dwellings, and then multifamily units of various sizes. And then commercial, industrial, institutional permits. There's accessory structures, minor developments such as aircraft hangars and minor renovations, and then new construction for additions and major renovations. There's a cost there, as well as relocatable, holy man, industrial camp facilities. And then we also have miscellaneous development permits, which I have listed for you. Section 15 also goes into development deposits and the various deposits that we take for the various types of development. Most of them, or all of them, associated with some form of new construction. In a proactive initiative to bolster development endeavors within the town of Slave Lake, administration is advocating for a temporary suspension of the fees associated with development permits. This suspension is proposed to be effective June 4th, 2024 to December 31st, 2025. And the details of this suspension are outlined as follows. So residential permits for a single family dwelling of 150, additions to dwellings 75, garages 75, placement of mobile homes 125, minor residential developments like sheds, decks and steps, a $50 permit, semi-detached dwellings 200, multifamily 225 plus 50 per unit, and then more than 4 units 300 plus 50 per unit, and then a addition or renovation to a multifamily at 200. Commercial and industrial institutional permits, accessory structure permits for $100, minor developments such as aircraft hangars and minor renovations 200. New construction and additions or major renovations to any of those, $250 plus $1.50 per meter square of gross floor area. Miscellaneous permits we would include would be demolition of residential buildings and all other buildings, and then of course secondary suites. The suspension of fees associated with development permits for new construction in residential, commercial, and industrial sectors is a significant policy shift that necessitates tracking and valuation of its impacts. Administration will provide a report that will comprehensively analyze its impacts across economic, social, and environmental dimensions. This entails evaluating its effects on development rates and scales, alongside its fiscal implications for both the municipality and developers. Furthermore, the report will scrutinize potential drawbacks and recommend regulatory adjustments, drawing insights from comparative studies with other municipalities. In summary, the report will provide council with a thorough assessment, facilitating informed decision-making regarding this policy change. The report will follow the suspension period once all the data has been tracked and compiled. So there are a few options here for council. Council could proceed with the suspension of development permit fees as listed from June 5th, 2024 to December 31st, 2025. The council could amend the types of permits that have no fees applied to them. So more than just new construction. And same thing from June 5th, 2024 to December 31st, 2025, that should say. And council could defeat the motion, leave the development permit fees as outlined in the current planning and development fees bylaw. The department has also calculated the estimated budget impact by considering the 3-year average of fees collected for residential, commercial, and institutional development permits. For new construction or major renovation projects, the 3-year average for permits issued stands at $4,929.23. Suspending development permit fees as detailed above would result in an anticipated decrease in revenue with an estimated $2,500 reduction for the remainder of 2024 and an anticipated $5,000 decrease for 2025 budget year. So we lifted out the types of development permits and the number of permits for 2021, 22, and 23 and the values attached to it. So the recommendation is that administration is recommending a council moves to suspend the development permit fees as proposed. Additionally, the administration suggests that the deposits for developments continue to be mandated. These deposits play a crucial role in ensuring adherence to the conditions outlined in the permits issued, which are crafted in accordance with the town's statutory plans and land use bylaw. So I give you a couple of motions there. Motion one would be, suspending the development permit fees for new construction as listed from, hang on, I'm just looking, it would be that from, June 5th to December 31st, 2025. And motion number two. Sorry, I just gotta make myself a little more comfortable with what this one says.
Motion number two is regards to the report at the end of the.
Oh, the follow-up back.
That's
Thanks,
correct,
Jeff. Questions?
Counselor Adams.
I got a couple of questions more for understanding for the public as well as myself. The deposit piece that we have within our bylaw. Why do we take that deposit? What is the risk if we don't have a deposit? You could explain that.
We instituted a development deposit probably about 20 years ago, and the reason we did it is we were having difficulty getting developers to complete their development permits. So long delays in submission of real property reports or lot grade certificates or just completion of the development as a whole. And we found there were a few other municipalities in Alberta that were doing this, and they were seeing significant drops in the amount of enforcement that had to be taken on developments that were completed. So since we've instituted the development deposit and we hold it until all conditions of the development permit are met, we've seen significant decrease in the number of developments that are not completed and are left open for long periods of time. So it's dramatically reduced the amount of enforcement we have to do to get the developments completed, because developers are motivated to receive their deposit back. And further, I just wanted to clarify, because there's some public misinformation. We never not return development deposits. They always go back. Doesn't matter whether the development complies or it doesn't comply with the conditions. We deal with variance issues with respect to that, but they always get their deposit back once they complete their development.
Counselor Adams.
So when we do implement these deposits, you said reduced infractions, were those infractions typically around larger scale developments, or is this mainly I didn't put my shed where I said I was going to put it, or whatever?
No, it was everything from maybe the shed didn't go where it was more like they didn't complete the siding on the shed, or they didn't submit their real property report, or I didn't get the lot grading plan, or they didn't finish their lot grading and landscaping. So it was any number of potential factors that we would be chasing the developer to complete.
So when we went through things like apartment development, this is kind of where I'm aiming with this. That is a significant deposit that's put down for that. When we had our developments being done back in 2012, 2013, did that deposit make an impact on that, or was that just, are they typically completing on the larger projects? I'm just wondering, I guess what I'm getting at is if this, I want to take away anything we can that
It's a barrier.
yeah, that would be a barrier to getting these high density type developments in place. I'd like us to see
So just if I could
facilitating
respond to
that, but I don't know how that would impact.
vast
us and the
majority,
risk.
the big developers that come in, it's definitely not a barrier. If it's going to be a barrier, it's going to be for the, for the average person. And they're not the developers that we're typically having issues with. Typically, the big developers that are coming in and building the big commercial buildings and building the, 3-story apartment buildings are getting in, getting their development done, submitting their stuff and closing their file and moving on. That's not where we're seeing delays in getting development completed.
My concern here that I'm trying to get across to council, I guess, and to the public is we don't have these developers coming in. We don't have apartment buildings being built where they've been burnt down. So we almost have to hope that we do have a local person that is going to do a development, or somebody that is, and maybe that $20,000 deposit is a significant Keith.
the 3,000.
Oh, I just want to comment on that. There's a couple things there. There were two department buildings that did not get rebuilt. But we had the Main Street apartments that came on after the fact, which made up for actually more units than what we had in the two buildings that did not get built.
I
The other
understand,
thing-
but our vacancy is zero.
Yeah, I get that. But I also want to point out to you that I've had a number of conversations with high density developers. And these developers do extensive market research before they build. And I believe there is more to the reason why we don't have more apartment buildings than just the zero vacancy rate. Like I said, I've talked to a number of them over the years. They do tons of market research before they come into a community and build. And I can assure you that our deposit has never been brought up to me as an issue from any of those developers that are coming in to build their building.
Okay, I'm gonna pick at this then. You're saying you've talked to developers that are saying we are not a viable investment opportunity because our
No,
vacancy
that's
rate is
not-
zero.
That's not what I said. I said that I have talked to them and that many developers since 2011 and onward about apartment buildings, and what they have advised me is they do extensive market analysis before they build. So there has to be something more to the issue than just the zero vacancy rate that's not driving the development. And I'm not sure what it is because I didn't ask the question. I just know that these are the comments that were made to me when I talked to these developers about apartment developments.
Counselor Hughes, do you want to weigh in for a minute while Counselor Adams processes this?
Sure.
You had your hand up, yes?
Yeah, well, it was earlier now my brain's just in a different way, but yeah, so just as an example, back to the deposit thing, I just wanted to make sure I understand this perfectly. Someone's building a deck, they pay the required deposit, they build their deck larger than what they originally told you or got a permit for. Then what happens? Are they charged a fee or some sort of variance thing because they went outside and built something larger than what they said they would?
No,
Or-
well, it doesn't affect the deposit at all, for one thing.
But are
So
they
that-
charged extra?
It would
fee
depend
then,
on
or-
what, it depends on the deck. So let's say
Okay.
they, went right to the property line with the deck and they don't meet the setback, then yeah, they would have to go for a variance or reduce the deck in order
Okay.
for it to comply with the land use bylaw.
Okay, and so those numbers are just an indicator. It depends on how big they go, like the dollar value depends on a number of
The value
factors.
of the deposit?
No, of like what they have to pay extra, like a
Yeah, it
fee
would
that they
depend
have to
on how
pay.
big, it would depend on how big that variance is. If I can approve the variance, then it's a smaller fee. If it has to go to the municipal planning commission, it's a little more. If it's got to go all the way to the subdivision development appeal board, it's a much bigger fee because it goes to the MPC for refusal and then to the SDAB. So there's more process involved there. So, yeah.
Okay. Okay. Okay, thank
Each
you.
level has a certain level of authority as it relates to how much
Yeah.
percentage of a difference it is, right? Which
Yeah,
is
no,
in your,
I fully
yeah.
understand that. I just.
but it doesn't
was
impact the
questioning
deposit though.
The fee structure and
Yeah,
that. I
that's
just
how it
wanted to
goes. And
comment
there
on that.
is like, if you apply for your variance before you develop, the fee is lower. So if I've issued you tell me you're going to build your deck to this size and I issue the permit based on that. It complies with the bylaw. Here's the regulations. You
Okay.
come in, you build it a lot bigger. The development, or the fee for the variance has a punitive measure built into it because you didn't comply with your permit, with your
Mhm.
site plan, or with the regulations of the bylaw.
Right,
So then it'll be a little bit more. But if you come in before you construct and say, I would like to build my deck X number of feet larger, we can get you that variance at a much reduced fee prior to you starting.
okay,
So basically, encouraging pre-approval of your variance rather than coming back and asking for forgiveness after the fact.
okay, thank you. That's good to know. I don't know if Council Adams is ready, but I was gonna go back to the barriers to doing business, if you will. So you said, your comment to him essentially was just that you've talked to people who do the market research, et cetera, and you don't feel that the deposits that we've required in the past have had any barrier to people building here, right?
Not on the big developments.
Not on
So,
larger developments.
yeah, like
okay.
in industrial, commercial, institutional, residential,
Yeah.
high density. No, I'm not
So
getting that.
in your
indication.
entire tenure, because you've been with the town for a long time, do you have any indication of what the other reasons might be then? If it's not the deposit, is there something else regulatory that is frustrating or is basically a barrier to business?
I'm not hearing, well, I'm not hearing that. Like, the biggest concerns I hear are, and they come through, surveys and studies, is the development fees, but we know that we've done a comparative on our fees, so that we
Yes,
fall midline.
yeah,
There was, in the Nichols, report for, industrial developments, they talked about off-site levies and
yes,
development charges, but again, in the market study that was done by Nichols, that didn't bear out either. Our off-site levies and development charges fall mid-range again to like municipalities of like demographic and size. Then there was comments about there aren't plans in place. But you got the context of that study was it was a regional industrial park plan. So the comments were coming from developers in both the town and the MD. We have municipal development plans, area structure plans, land use bylaws. All of our plans are there,
Mhm.
and they might, some of them might be old, but all of the long range planning is there. So there's no holdup in terms of if a developer wants to come, we know what the development concept should look like. And so I don't know. I mean, I'd love to tell you why I think there's issues, but there's nothing glaring that stands out at me that is explaining why.
okay,
Counselor Adams.
Kate, if we've had these conversations with people, we know these developers that are saying no to coming here for apartments or whatever because of the market analysis or whatever extensive research they're doing. Are we able to reach out to them and get a specific answer? I know this is off topic. Are we able to reach out to them and get a specific answer back as to what we need to do to make that?
I could try,
facilitate
like,
that.
I could talk with the landowners that own the specific sites and just see if they have done the market research or what barriers are preventing them from applying for a development.
Okay.
Like the last time I spoke.
I'm more interested in the ones you're saying that are saying they wouldn't develop here.
What I said to
I'm
you,
concerned about the market analysis piece, that they're relying on their information from the market analysis to determine that this is not a good place to invest. I want to find out what in that market analysis they're doing makes this not a good place to invest. Because I think it's insane that we have not had an apartment development in this community, whether it's a condo style or if it's an actual apartment. If I had the pockets, I'd be all over that. And I do not understand why we are not attracting that development in a community that is struggling for rentals. Sorry.
No,
I'm ranted.
no, that's not, that's actually where my brain was going. I will, moving forward, if we do have conversations, and I actually think we should reach out to previous developers on this market research piece to find out why, and if that involves collaboration with their economic development office or department, that's also fine as well. I love the idea of waiving the development fees to see what the impact is. In an overused quote, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. So as can be seen by the number of developments we've had in here, it's low, and we all know that we need housing. And we need a variety of different things. I would love to signal that Slave Lake is open for development. Slave Lake is open for business, and while waiving a small development fee is one piece of that, I think that's a good step forward, and to try something different. If it doesn't work, it is something that can be put back by a future council. I have a second commentary. We'll continue on with the development deposit rent. I understand why it was put in place, like that makes sense. To me, all the development deposits, I understand they're returned. But in a market where we are struggling to get people to find housing, and let's say I wanted to build a single family dwelling, I don't really want to put up $2,000 to do that. Maybe 500, maybe something to ensure regulation, but I'd almost rather see a report coming back with regards to maybe if that's the current palette for municipalities now, or maybe we just put it a flat fee for $500. I'm just throwing a number, $500 for everybody. But I don't love these developments, but regardless of the fact that in the past, people who've built, 20 unit apartment buildings have been able to pay $10,000 plus $500 a unit. we just haven't seen one in so long. And I would like to see if we can do something different, but I don't know what the palette of council is on that.
You could, if I may, you could add that, you know, this is a test, the proposal that's before you today is a test pilot in regards, or a test project as it relates to the development.
Yeah, that one's
You could
great.
easily add the deposits in there as well. I mean, really, the true value of the deposits here is to offset our is to minimize our enforcement costs. So this is easy enough to track, right? We could try it for the same period of time, suspend the deposits as well. See if that's a real incentive, if the builders are just going to come running through the door or whatever the case may be. And also track what our enforcement or lack of compliance is going to be. And that translates into dollars, that translates into staff dollars and all those things, right?
Be adjusted, and that's kind of my point. Right
The
now,
other-
our development.
I just wanted to point out, it also translate into like, nobody likes doing enforcement. It's like the least palatable part of my job, and council doesn't like it either. And I can tell you, when I don't have development deposits, I'm doing a heck of a lot more enforcement and a lot more chasing and a lot more hand holding, trying to get things completed. And that was the reason we brought them in, is so that we could reduce the amount of time we were spending chasing people. And we do get to the situation where I've got one development that's been open for 13 years and I'm still chasing them to complete and close the permit. And it's a lot of time, staff time spent trying to close these spots and get them to cooperate. So I just want to let you know, it's not a part of the job that I enjoy. And it's that the deposits have eased that. There's a lot less enforcement because the deposit's there and people are motivated to close their permits.
I respect your perspective on that, and I'm not discounting that in any way, shape, or form. I have a business and I understand sending to people to collections and enforcement of people paying their bills. I also do not enjoy doing. What I'm not seeing is when these development permits, I assume, or the fees were put in place, I'm assuming had more development. Because our development hasn't been at a standstill forever, and this is a variety of reasons, market factors, life's expensive, people don't want to build, we have a whole bunch of things. I'm tired of doing the same thing over and over again. So I personally would be in favor of waiving the development fees for the period stated here. I have no problem with that. And then I also believe we should be looking at these deposits. I want to remove any barrier that is in place potentially, and if it has no effect and it makes our enforcement portion miserable, then that comes back. But doing the same thing over and over again, I'm personally not interested in. But Councillor Person.
So what would enforcement look like without deposits? So if we don't collect a deposit, what would the enforcement look like on the other end?
Well, what happens then is if I can't get them to submit a real proper report or a lot grade certificate or finish their lot grading or pave their driveway or pave the parking lot or whatever the case may be, then I'm chasing them with letters and letters and letters. And if they don't comply, then I'm issuing stop orders. And then when the stop order gets in, then it's a court order. And then I'm involving the lawyer into enforcing the file. So the costs can get.
Law and fines as well.
Fines don't work for planning and development, and I'll explain why, is because most of the judges don't deal with municipal law. So then I need to hire a lawyer to come in to fight, to explain defend the ticket basically in the courts, and they don't understand it. So I've learned over the years that the municipal fine system for planning and development doesn't work. It's costly, it's time consuming. We're paying for lawyers to come in and fight the fine for us, and then they more often than not get tossed. So we don't process that way anymore. We go letters, stop order, and then stop order is then turned over to the lawyer, and then the lawyer sends a letter or a court order. And we pay for the legal fees associated with enforcing the file.
Councillor Adams.
Instead of me looking it up, what's approximation for a deposit on building a house?
$2,000.
$2,000.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I know, I didn't want to go
Okay.
searching for it. And I know Lori knows her stuff, so. So for $2,000, honestly, if I'm that stubborn, then I'm not responding to letters, I'm willing to go to court, I'm willing to fight fines, and I'm willing to say F you to the town of Slave Lake. I don't think $2,000 is, does that really make that big a difference?
Actually, it does, you know, like having been involved in development prior to deposits and having them before and then after, it does. And I can tell you, taking them through the court one time, the tax bill, the bill to us to pay the lawyer can be in the realm of 5,000 to 10,000, and the courts very rarely, if ever, require the landowner to reimburse the municipality for their legal costs, even though they may be in the wrong.
What year did we put in the deposits?
I have to go back and look. I'm thinking they've been in place for about 15 years. They were before the fire.
Do other municipalities have deposits?
Yes, we're not alone in it.
The
And
majority or minority?
boy, you know, I would be able to say a few years ago majority, but I don't know anymore. I'd have to go and look.
It's easy enough to amend. We could add it as a pilot if council so chooses to do so. And you know, we can track those costs. It'll be easy enough for us to track, but just be aware that there may be unintended consequences on the enforcement side that come with that motion, right? So.
At this stage, I know the deposit part was kind of my thing in this. I'm willing to at least start number one with what we have as far as fees, waive those. Let's see how the reaction is to that. We can revisit this 6 months and maybe we look at waiving deposit fees from that. We're targeting a specific development for the deposit fee, because for me, the deposit fee piece that I want to show that we're open for business, that we want this development more revolves around the high density developments rather than necessarily a single family or
Yeah, and
shed or something. Right?
can tell you, I've never.
So-
And you could make a motion to that effect as well, though. You could remove deposits for that group. If you wish.
My thing that I'm getting at is it's not just about the money. It's not just about that. And I'm thinking of this, and maybe I'm wrong with this, but I'm thinking of this from a marketing standpoint. I can sit here and I can sell that to a group. I can say, we're open for business because we're waiving deposits, we're waiving fees. We want you here. Come on in. You can sell that at what cost? 20 grand. And you're saying they're doing it anyway.
Yeah, like.
So
If-
then
if
why
I
don't we
was-
waive those?
I was gonna say, if I was gonna take deposits off the table, those was where I would take them because I never have any issues there. On high density developments, it's never a problem. So there would be no problem removing that, in my opinion.
I just, in my mind, you know, you're looking at even the duplex, semi-detached, triplex, fourplex. I know they're not necessarily high density, but they are higher density, you know, or look at apartments under 20 units. So let's say someone wanted to come and build a condo style 10 unit, they're looking at $15,000. Well, $15,000 does make a difference. If we're looking at local developers, and we haven't had local developers for a long time. I think I'd love to see these deposits waived and see what happens. I will make that motion. Okay. I don't
I
usually
was
make
waiting to
motions.
do that one. Yes.
I'm gonna make,
Scoop me.
I gotta find it. Okay, there's a, oh, that's a really long motion. Do I?
The first motion.
Okay, so, actually, I can make my other. Which motion do I want to make first? There's two. Which one's which? The first one? What's the second one?
Just read the therefore be resolved portion. I think you're probably fine with that.
Okay, sure. I'll read the whereas and then the therefore, that part. Motion number one, whereas the town council acknowledges the importance of stimulating development activity within the municipality, and whereas the current structure of development permit fees and development deposits may serve as a barrier to residential, commercial, industrial, and institutional development endeavors. Therefore, be it resolved that the town council hereby moves to suspend a development permit fees and development deposits for the period from June 5th, 2024 to June 31st, 2025. So that is my motion.
And deposits.
Sorry, what did I say?
Yeah.
I said development deposits, development permit fees and development deposits.
I don't necessarily think we should be waiving the lower one, so.
You can make an amendment to my motion if you would like. I think it should be all because I believe we are in desperate need of housing. And if an individual wants to build their own home, so I'm going to continue on the discussion portion before you make an amendment. If an individual wants to build their own home, $2,000 is going to matter to me, just like it matters in realty fees and legal fees, and that's why people shop around for all of those things. I think it matters. It mattered to Bryce for Counselor Ferguson, sorry, I've gotten to the casual portion of the evening apparently, where I'm using first names, my apologies. Where Counselor Ferguson said it matters, and if this stops, in my mind, two people from building, that is two houses where on the back end of things, the town is ultimately collecting property taxes on. So now, simple things that are market triggers, I say let's try it. Counselor.
I get where Lori's coming from here. And I get it on the big developments, but should we be then waiving an addition to a dwelling, a garage upgrade, a placement of a mobile home, those type of deposits? Am I on the deposit section? Those are permits. Hang on. I'm on the wrong one. Jeez. Where the is that?
Page
section?
111.
We're not the same.
Oh, sorry.
Oh,
you don't, really?
There we go. Sorry. Development deposits. So then should we be waiving the secondary suites? I guess that includes an increase in density, so I'm okay with that. Sorry, I'm talking to myself here as we go.
Any improvement to a property
fine.
will
I'm in.
increase the assessment value. Okay, no amendment. My motion is on the floor. Counselor Hughes.
Thank you. Yeah, I was just gonna say every dollar counts right now. And like you said, we just keep doing the same thing. So let's try something different. I would like to make an amendment possibly for a review within the next few months. Like let's just not leave this to go a year and a half. Let's get a bit of an update or whatever on it at some point. Yeah, that's all I'm saying. I don't know what appropriate timeline would be to you
So let me
guys
make
or
a
to
second-
Lori, but.
Make a second motion about a report.
Yeah, sure. I just wanted to say, does everybody want a review sooner than later? We're not gonna let this go a year and a half and then be like, oh, hey.
Counselor Tobin.
I was just gonna agree with Councillor Hughes that we would rather see it being reviewed in the near future. So, you know, maybe 6 months, maybe a year from now, whatever that looks like. And then, you know,
Building season now, let's take a look over 6 months. If enforcement goes to,
I'll just let you know that in 6 months, we can review it in 6 months. That's not a problem. You won't see, I won't see any impact from an enforcement side for probably 18 months because that's.
so this is fine then, at the timeline.
Yep.
Okay,
I wouldn't bother reviewing in 6 months unless you want to see what it's doing to the fees because I won't know from an enforcement standpoint for 18 months anyway.
okay,
Alright.
well. Motion on the floor. Is there any further discussion? Call to question, those in favor. Okay, that is carried. There's a second motion. Do we need to make that? No. Yes, no.
Yeah, I think you do. I think this is the report or the study or something.
Well, that's for the, yes.
Yeah.
You want to make that, Counselor Adams?
On motion one.
Just do the, just get to the whereas therefore.
Okay,
Counselor Adams.
thank you.
Sorry, just 1 second before you go to motion two. Motion one, the very last paragraph there
Do I need to?
also needs to be amended.
Oh, okay, so the motion that was on the floor that we just, so I need to.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Also that we amend the last paragraph in the motion. It
Okay, so
refers
make
to,
a Motion to amend the last paragraph
Yeah,
that says
it's
that,
basically saying development deposits for developments will
Still
still be
applicable.
applicable. So we'll strike that from,
yes, can you strike the portion that says deposits for development will still be applicable as outlined in the planning and development
Yeah.
fees bylaw? Do you need a motion on the amendment? I'll motion to amend it.
probably should.
Any further discussion? Call to question, those in favor. Okay, just to be sure on that. Now we have motion two. Counselor Adams.
All right. Whereas the town council recognizes the significance of fostering economic development while ensuring responsible urban planning practices. And whereas the current framework of development permit fees may influence development patterns and economic growth within the municipality. Therefore, be it resolved that the council hereby directs the administration to prepare and present a comprehensive report detailing the potential impacts of the removal of the development permit fees and deposits. The report shall encompass analysis of economic, social, and environmental implications associated with the elimination of said fees, including but not limited to The anticipated effects on the rate and scale of development projects within the jurisdiction, the financial implications for both the municipal budget and developers operating within the municipality, the potential benefits and drawbacks for local businesses, residents, and the broader community, any regulatory adjustments or alternative revenue streams necessary to offset the removal of development permit fees, and comparative case studies from jurisdictions where similar fee structures have been modified or abolished if available, and recommendations for potential courses of action considering the findings outlined above.
Yes.
And one addition, you should add something about the deposits, right? An analysis on the deposits, the
So
cost.
anywhere it says development fees and.
I
deposits.
said that up at the top.
Yeah, he did.
Did you catch that? Correct?
Maybe.
I inserted it.
So the motion that was made would say that it will say development fees and deposits.
Okay.
We're clear? Principal. Yeah, great.
There we go.
Oh, Lord, any further discussion? Call to question, those in favor? That is carried. Thank you, Lori. We're gonna move forward quickly into my addition to the agenda, which is 5C. I would like to motion to move the June 18th council meeting to June 19th. And the reason is that there's a potential game 5 for the, okay, the Oilers, and I know everyone on this council, as absurd as it is, except for maybe Andrew, like to watch the hockey games. As does that. So in order to have everyone pay full attention, I don't think starting a council meeting at 7 PM on a game night that starts at 6 makes a whole lot of sense. I have confirmed with administration that this would be possible, so that is my motion. Is there any further discussion? No. It's just moving it one day. Okay, you like this, see, made you smile. Call to question, those in favor. Okay, that is carried. Thank you. Question period.
No.
Pass.
Once, twice, 3 times. I see nothing. State of the lake. We don't have Counselor Moallim to provide the delightful update. I will provide, I'm gonna read the statement that I made on Facebook today regarding the flat top encampment. So today we had a meeting facilitated by the RCMP with a variety of stakeholders in the community regarding the flat top encampment. The RCMP indicated that we are able to remove the encampment by next Wednesday, but will require support services to be in place to assist the unhoused population should they choose to access the services. While the removal of an encampment will not solve homelessness or crime in its entirety, at this point, the level of public safety risk is far too great for the flat top encampment to exist as it does currently, and it must be removed. The encampment working group established by the RCMP will be meeting in the coming months to establish medium and long-term plans with regard to homelessness supports and connecting individuals to the already existing provincial supports. I will be clear, as I was in the meeting, that this encampment must be removed immediately for the safety of all of our residents, housed or unhoused. I reiterated that public safety risk is at an all-time high. And while criminal activity can't be reduced to zero, that we need to pursue criminals within the full extent of the law and make criminals' lives uncomfortable. The meeting was held today with various stakeholders, and I think that basically sums it up. There will be more meetings as we move forward to look at connecting those that choose to access supports to them and make a working plan. And that is it. Anything else for State of the Lake? Fantastic. Counselor Hughes.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion on the floor. Any further discussion? Call to question, those in favor. That is carried.